Alright, here we go. Making of World of Warcraft behind the scenes, gentlemen. I'm gonna be leveling and watching at the same time.
I'm Matt Samia, the director of the World of Warcraft cinematic intro. What we have right here for you is a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. This is stuff that we generally don't release, but this time we just thought it might be kind of cool to show some of the...
Dude, looking at someone that had a beard and shaved is so different. You just look like a nutsack.
Pieces that go into making the finished product. So these are showing off some of the things that we found to be pretty challenging. We had to come up with a whole new way of doing hair because of the dwarf and his crazy beard and braids and all that stuff. And this is showing off some dynamic simulations on the bear fur. We were doing more dynamic simulations, I think, on this show than we had ever done in the past. Every bit of cloth, every bit of fur and hair, and every little dangly thing that was hanging off a character wound up having a simulation and was moving around. You can see even his earrings are moving a bit.
Damn, dude, I gotta say, back then Blizzard had the best cinematics. Like every cutscene, even Diablo, like me and my brothers would be fucking hyped to see.
We were delving into some new shaders for skin. We think we're getting a little bit better with that. We like the way this
still the best. I don't know if they're still the best.
These shots were pretty huge and full of all kinds of effects. These characters were probably some of the most complex we'd ever done, which is kind of ironic considering we designed them to be simple, and we were thinking these were not going to be so difficult to get on screen. It's just sort of the nature of these characters. We really couldn't get around the fact that they are just covered in all kinds of baubles and little things and weapons and what have you. This is showing some of the stages of a set in progress. This is one of the Night Elf shots from Teldrassil. Here we get a little look at how things work, how they're worked up. These are some of the passes on the Night Elf, like showing her animation, and now these are some of the dynamic sims actually being run. You can see how many there are. This is actually cutting out quite a few, in fact. But these are previews of some of them. This is including her hair sim, and then of course with shading and lighting and compositing and all that sort of magic, we get the actual shot. This panther was a real challenge, trying to make a cat move like a real cat. That was something else. You can see his tail, or probably her tail, swirling around there. That's weird. Something that we got off footage of an actual panther making this jump, and it turns out a lot of people thought it looked wrong, but it was kind of funny because it was absolutely correct. So we had a lot of debate about whether or not we should take that out, even though it was correct in quotes. So this is showing some of the
cats. I know how they run
different stages. The level of detail that we were building into these characters this time was really quite high. We were doing things like even building the folds into their clothing, even though they were going to be simulated afterwards. We found that we were getting much better results by actually modeling the folds in, doing some range of motion tests on his face to see what kinds of expressions we can get away with. Again, showing off a shot and how we work them up. This is some of the early animation. Now that we're happy with the animation, you can see we're running the sims on all his layers of clothing and his different layers of jewelry and what have you.
Damn, this mage was badass in the cinematic. I remember him.
And what we finally came up with, again, with all the magic added, etc. We rebuilt our orc to be much more like the orc in the game, and just overall bulkier and scarier and cooler. We were really playing with the idea of how to get his muscles to move around, and we finally settled on using an approach that they used in the Hulk film, which was we made morph targets for different flexes, basically, and brought them in and out depending on what he was doing. If you look carefully, as we get these different versions, you can start to see the flexing going on. It's pretty subtle, but it's there.
He was doing that for sure.
And again, finished shot with all the crazy simulations. This is our Tauren. We're pretty proud of this Tauren. We think he's pretty cool.
Proud of the Tauren.
We pretty much rebuilt the Tauren from the last trailer to match more closely the guy in the game.
This is exactly how Warcraft 3 Taurens were. I feel like in WoW, the Taurens didn't really get the feel from Warcraft 3.
The game art had evolved between the time we did the last one and this one. It's more of the kinds of tests that we do to make sure that everything is working and that we have enough range of expression for his face. And here he is being angry and violent. Again, a shot in progress showing the kinds of things that we get maybe halfway along, where some of the characters are fully shaded and some of them aren't,
cool.
and we're working up the composite. This was our undead guy. We tried all kinds of things to make him icky and rotting and kind of nasty, and
this guy reminds me of
sure
Anbani. Like, this is
pretty
how
cool,
Anbani
actually.
looks like in the morning.
It's kind of a shame you don't really get to see his eyes too well in the finished shot.
Yeah, this is
because,
insane. I didn't know it was
we
this
put
much
some
detail.
thought and effort into making those eyes look kind of shriveled like old grapes. Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Here he is, animated. These are showing off some of the things that we did for the ground. We were actually playing with the idea of having the plants die off when he takes a step, and they actually do if you look in the shot. Again, it's pretty subtle. There are a lot of things going on in the
remember
shot.
that.
All the layers of Sims. He has some spit hanging off of his
I didn't know he
lower
had
lip,
spits.
and that's in there too. This is
What
showing
the
off some of the
fuck? I
tests we
didn't
did for
know
that.
that.
In some ways inspired by the alien. If you look closely in the finished shot,
what?
you will see that he does in fact.
Did you guys know he was trolling?
Have some spit hanging there. You gotta
I
look
didn't
closely,
know
but it's in there.
that. What?
It's one of those little touches that we wind up putting in there. And maybe nobody but us knows they're there.
4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together
Oh,
and stood
dude.
united against the might of the Burning Legion.
Baba, don't go.
Azeroth was
Very
saved.
pog DPC.
Thank you for the
Tenuous
emote,
pact
very
between
pog.
The Horde and the Alliance has all
This is
but
very
evaporated. The drums of war thunder once again.
God, this trailer, man, it goes hard. All I remember from this is me dying now. When I was all tabbed and I was watching and I die. Wow. Wow. Chills. Yeah, I gotta say the art looks so clapped. Did you see her? One sec, I'm getting shebanged right now. Look at this. Yeah. Came out great though. Oh wait, it was originally supposed to be a... In here she turns into a crow. But they did a panther instead. I think the panther was good. Or Druid of Talent, I don't know. Watching the creation of the WoW cinematic. Was better. I don't know about that one, Chief. This is a little choppy for you guys, right? It's not just me. Okay. That's cool.
4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together.
What is the same
and
thing
stood
again?
United against the might of the Burning Legion. The line drop.
I'm gonna go ahead and skip it, yeah?
And one thing you may notice with World of Warcraft is the characters are really animated, and a lot of that just comes from a traditional 2D animation background carried over into 3D. So one thing that we pride in our animators is just taking it to that next level.
Honestly, for 2004, they did a fantastic job. So good.
In 3D. None of our animations are motion captured. We just feel that the World of Warcraft is such an animated and colorful
So
environment good. That the hand animation was the only way to kind of really truly, bring it to life.
Between the characters and players, we have about 4,000 unique animations. We have about 2,000 unique player character animations, and we have about 2,000 unique creature animations.
So between the 16 character races, that's male and female, each have about 120 to 130 plus unique hand-done animations.
Sheesh.
Each creature has anywhere between
We're watching
10 and 20
Classic
animations, depending on where the creature's going to be used. If it's a boss or a sub-boss, then generally they have more animations, than something like your typical wolf or something along those lines.
And in the case of non-player characters, NPCs, wherever we were able to use one of our player characters as an NPC, well, of course, they're going to, just inherit, those 120 plus unique animations, which is really nice. The designers can do really cool things with quests, having access to all those animations.
Oh wait, you can flex and she laughs? I didn't know that.
We also tried to inject some of the Warcraft humor. Warcraft 3.
She gives you a kiss? Yo, we gotta go try that.
Warcraft 2. These games have a lot of humorous elements in them, and we wanted to make sure that we captured some of that in the
flirt
World
with the
of Warcraft.
bartender there?
A lot of the creatures have, some really unique stances. If you watch a creature for a while, they'll do some really humorous kind of animations.
Yeah.
The Sea Giant is a great example, because if you watch him long enough, you'll see that he'll actually fart. It's actually very rare, so you have to watch them for a long time.
I think I've seen
there's
the
a lot
fart
of humorous
before.
and very subtle elements in the game.
Here you have this giant, ominous, insanely powerful creature, and yet we'll inject some of that Blizzard humor with the Sea Giant passing wind. Of course, he does it in his own special way. He's a Sea Giant, so of course a gigantic bubble would come from him, and then he's very inquisitive, so of course he's going to pop that bubble. And of course, what it ends with is something, just really unique to what Blizzard does.
Another example is the Kobold.
I think this transitioned from Warcraft 3, because in Warcraft 3 they had things like that. If you click them many times, they had a little subtle joke and whatnot.
If you watch them, they'll chase their tail every so often.
Oh, I didn't.
The ogres will scratch their rear end.
Okay, no, I know that one.
Each of the player characters has over 25 unique
His shoulders look way bigger than it is, right?
mode animations, and those really help add a lot of character, and in some cases really give each character a sense of humor.
We did have some basic guidelines that we had to stay within. The attack animations had to be a set length. Special attack animations could be a little bit longer. We made sure that weapons made contact at a certain frame rate so that we could make combat look real and believable in the game, so that when you're knowing when a character or creature is going to be hitting, you can time all of your, dodges, blocks, parries to make combat more, lifelike and real.
Yeah, it's really important to have a creature react when a character swings the sword and hits the creature. Without that exact timing, it doesn't come across as realistic and comes across as very fake.
Sometimes it'd be challenging to get the character.
Did you ever set the stones for all the rest of the Blizzard employees to walk on for World of Warcraft? These guys, I want to see them. I want to see who did it.
To hit at a certain
Do we get
frame,
to see their faces?
in the end, it was just something you got used to, and it really didn't cause any problems.
Another thing too with keeping the different animations at a reasonable length is it really helps facilitate gameplay. You don't want the player to be waiting around for an animation to play that's really long. You want to keep things very snappy and at a good pace. When we first started a creature or a character, a lot of times the first thing we would do is try to come up with their neutral stand pose. This is the pose that they're standing in most of the time, and it really conveys a lot of the character. So getting that down first can save a lot of time for animation later on.
Yeah, because sometimes we would take a creature or
Yeah,
character
those trees are so
a little
cool.
bit too far, a little out of the scope of what design had in mind, and so to save time, we would just get them into certain poses and kind of show those, and then get one of those approved, and then we know at that point what direction to take.
You ever notice
the character
Keeper
or the
regularly
creature.
scratches his ass and
Each
says
player race
nasty
has a
boy?
unique mount,
Um,
and those mounts were designed
I don't know
to
what that is.
basically reflect each character. In the case of like humans riding horses, makes perfect sense. Gnomes, we wanted to have something lighthearted and something that would reflect their inclination to tinker. And so we have
Yeah.
Mechanostrider, which is a mechanical, ostrich. Night elves ride tigers, which kind of flows with the whole Priestess of the Moon.
Oh,
and
what?
Warcraft
This was a color? Damn.
3. The dwarfs ride rams. At one point, they rode boars, and it just didn't quite look right. It was interesting, definitely.
Wait,
but
they rode boars back then? Wait, that's kind of... I like the ram. I think the ram's
ultimately
awesome.
Came up with the rams. So not only did we have unique mounts per race, but we also have some extremely unique mounts per class. And in the case of the paladin and the war horses and the warlocks can summon a nightmare. So the nightmare is a little bit different than the typical undead horse that the undead ride, in that it essentially is...
I love the raptor.
More of an ethereal, dark stallion with, blazing hooves and blazing eyes, in which case we were able to incorporate some of our spell effects into the models to create that unique look. We had a lot of fun animating the unique individual mounts for each character.
That's sick.
Some of the creatures were particularly challenging, especially the elemental type creatures, whether it be wind, fire, water elemental. These are not very solid. They're made up of different elements that are very difficult to convey in a video game. Using polygons, it's very difficult to create an ethereal kind of look.
In the case of say, a water elemental, if you were to kill it, essentially it just dissipates into nothing. And of course that posed some technical issues with how are we supposed to loot nothing after we've killed it. And so we would go in and say, okay, well, we need something like bracers or something solid. And so of course we would drop bracers, as the creature is fading away. We drop some piece of armor so that a character could see something on the ground and it would sense, oh, okay, I can loot this. There's multiple boss creatures in the world of Warcraft, and they're treated a little bit different than the standard creature. We had some technical limitations on creatures. We weren't to exceed a certain, bone number, bone count, animation count. Those restrictions were pretty much removed with boss creatures, since a lot of the times you're going to be encountering them by themselves and not in a group. A lot of times we're able to use more bones, more animations. You're going to see definitely a level of intensity, higher than the standard creature. You're going to see we definitely spent more time on the boss creatures just because we really wanted them to have a huge impact in the game.
Hi, this is Bill Petrus. I'm the art director on World of Warcraft, and I'm happy to introduce the lead art staff.
That sucks,
of
Hoshi.
World of
I'm sorry.
Warcraft.
I'm Kyle Harrison, the lead technical artist. I'm Brandon Idle, lead character artist. Justin Tabrat, lead artist.
I'm Kevin Beardsley, the lead animator.
One of the biggest things that we did early on is we really had to look at the Warcraft look, and we really had to figure out, hey guys, what are we actually going to be doing in this project? We did a lot of experiments with different scales of exaggeration. We also had a different style for the textures, and we realized that it wasn't the Warcraft look. It was not there. And
I don't want to be that
to,
guy, Chad, but man, these guys sound so fucking passionate than the current ones. Like, I could see them. They worked hard to build this, and not only was it for the money, but they were just like spending extra time after their working hours just to fill the world with like beautiful things. And yeah, it's one of those passion projects, man. Like, they're still getting paid to do it, but they're doing more than enough. It feels like they're not just getting the paycheck and like, okay, we're done. Like, I feel like they were really trying to fill the whole thing up with a lot. I could really feel that. It's really cool.
modify that look, and what you see today is basically the blood, sweat, and tears of many years of work to try and
Exactly. I could see the blood, sweat, and tears when somebody put it in. Like, them talking about it, I could feel it, man.
get that style. And in some ways we actually pushed the style. We really wanted to make our game feel like, multiple artists just really lovingly rendered this game out. Everywhere from the animations to the modeling to the texturing to the lighting, the exaggerated scales of things, the animations filled with character.
You can just tell by strongly exaggerated poses and animations that we drew from Frazetta and Disney, references that we drew from, really strong references.
With the environmental work, some of the major influences obviously were like N.C. Wyeth, Howard Pyle, Dean Cornwell, some of the older American landscape artists. We really wanted to capture that atmosphere, that feel in our game where you go from one area to the other and you can feel the heat of the zone. It's interesting when you're working on a project like this, as complicated and as big it is, because you don't really see all the pieces come together at the same time.
Damn, that looks really cool. I don't think we have this in the game. I think we have that turtle, but it's not that much. That zone looks
This
sick.
particular artist does his job over here, and it takes a while for it to get into the game and to be played. And at some point in
Where
development,
is this
I don't really
referencing
remember-
even, Chad? Is this like Thousand Needles or? I'm getting that vibe, but there is no place that looks like this in 1K Needle. I wish I had more buildings like that. These are really pretty to look at. Oh, this is Kargath. That little corner, I guess. We don't have the turtle though, right? Oh, you guys can't even see it because the video. I was opening our map.
remember when all of it started to come together, and we were just really excited to be like, wow. This
Damn, I've never
really is
seen these
coming
concept
together.
arts.
I don't
These are
remember
really
exactly
pretty.
When that was. When was that?
I think it was when Westfall kind of got put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The lighting came together, the textures came together. The
This is
player
probably
character,
Westfall, right?
One of our first creatures, the Knoll, basically just nailed that Warcraft look and feel, both with texture, model, and animation. I mean, I think that's when it came together.
Westfall was definitely the start of really capturing the look of what the game was going to be. One thing that I think really sets WoW apart from other games out there is that we really refuse to go down the assembly line process. Every time we approached a new zone or a new area that the player would explore, we wanted them to be completely rewarded in every way whatsoever. So from the lighting to the sky all the way down to just the little brush and brambles on the ground or the ambient creatures that would be running around that area, we made sure that it was fresh every time, and we came through and meticulously created new art, new even techniques each time we got to a new area.
I think the team was never really happy with just what we were working with. We always were pushing the envelope. We always wanted to just maximize the technology that we had. We made sure that our textures worked twice as hard.
It was really refreshing to have different perspectives from all over the art department, whether a texture artist came in and commented on the animation, or a designer walked in and said, oh, I think this would look cooler if it was bigger. It was really an open back and forth communication, which I think, in the long run, it's a very iterative process. It might take a little longer than, say, a different method of doing it, but I think in the end it works out for the best, and everyone kind of gets their 2 cents in on some stage of the game there.
I remember these boxes.
Each team was in respecting another group or another little development group or area.
And where I lived, I never saw the orc one. We only had the night elf one.
Of development that would come in and say, hey, we noticed that, this maybe was not reaching its full potential, or we felt like maybe we could try this and it would be a little cooler. And people were always very open to at least hear that and sort of get that line of communication going back and forth. So
you still have
that
yours?
really helped to build us.
Fuck, I wish I had
more
mine. I have the
in a very
Wrath
strong
one
direction.
still.
We continually
But
are
that's it.
replacing and upgrading and doing things to the world that we want to change. And so we're going to continue to do that for the next, I don't know how many years.
A lot of times our philosophy seems to start at sort of minimalist. We say, well, we want to keep the art reined in. We don't want to really eat up any unneeded CPU time trying to render this. So what we do is we kind of create the art at the
I almost want to say, this is what's missing in retail. I feel like
In doing things to the world.
this feels more badass and edgy.
That we want to change, and so we're going to continue to do that.
Even Goblin, what is this, troll or goblin? These guys look badass, right?
Next, I don't know how many years.
I feel like throughout the years, Blizzard kept replacing artists, and the new ones, they don't have this feel.
A lot of times
I
our
like
philosophy,
this style.
seems
I've
to-
mentioned it multiple times. I like the dark, kind of like Elden Ring vibes. I like monsters looking badass. I feel like Dragonflight, I don't have a lot of problems with it, but it was definitely a bit Very colorful, I'd
start
say.
at sort of minimalist. We say, well, we want to keep the art reined in. We don't want to like really eat
Like
up
these
any
look badass.
unneeded CPU time trying to render this. So what we do is we kind of create the art at the lowest
No, I don't
level
think
we
retail's
can and try to
bad.
make
I
it
don't want
look
to
good at
badmouth
that
retail.
level.
I don't think they did
And then
anything
we
bad at
find as
Dragonflight.
a year or two goes by and hardware gets faster on computers.
But I could feel
we can
the
then
difference
come
in the
through and
art.
sort of finesse a
like the
little bit,
concept
add a few
arts.
of the things that we maybe skimped over to begin with, and we just make it that much better by kind of refining it.
The iterative process, just going back and making everything polished. And you'll just notice that even before it gets into the game, sometimes there's a dozen drawings for one creature before it gets put in the game. And
Yeah, there's like
it'll
different
show
feels.
some
I'm not trying to say
of
retail's
the
bad.
rejected
I've made that
ideas
clear
and
many
how
times.
much goes into the final
It's
one.
like
that
different
makes it
style.
Early on, the concepts that we were having, we were showing the artists that were modeling and texturing. We're like, the Warcraft style is super thick and exaggerated, just huge bulging biceps, everything pushed to the max.
Damn, he nailed the description. Huge, bulky. Yeah, wow, they're always like bulky, man.
Maximum. And that's just kind of the way.
And the
that-
shoulder
that
pads
we
are, like,
approached
fucking
it.
insanely
and originally
large.
It's some artists that were like, you want me to make that hand 5 times bigger? Are you sure? We're like, yes. And they were like, I don't know. And we're like, just do it. And then once they started doing, they were realizing like, wow, this is the style. This is what we're looking for.
Yeah, hands like
The
10
animation
times
is
bigger.
very
I love
exaggerated
this
in the
troll
game, but
art.
at the same time, it still has weight and still has a level of realism to it. So, it's still believable.
I think one of the pivotal areas of our art is that it's not so much about detail, it's about form, it's about light, and it's about color. The artists pay more attention to the shape or form of an object or the texture of the surface and how the light plays off of that and how they can get that across mood-wise with colors.
I totally agree. I think it's the illusion of something rather than creating all the little details. If you can create that illusion where people go, oh wow, that's it, and it's less polys and less texture space, then we've done our job.
Yeah, so in addition, what is the Warcraft style? And we've had to break open all the old books and manuals and look at it, and I can think of
I love
some,
Warcraft style.
Sammy, the art director, his old sketches, or Chris Menson,
Oh!
and some of the definitive
I remember all
little,
these in Warcraft too. I know the song too.
pieces, like just the big boots. Everyone's got these size, like, 16 shoes in the Warcraft world. The boots are bigger than
I
their
played it
thighs
so
and
much with
things
my
like
brother.
that, and just trying to carry it down into the role-playing game perspective, but still trying to maintain that overall look and feel. Everything meshes together, everything flows.
Yeah, even down to the user interface and the icons.
I think this one's Warcraft 3,
everything
that Tauren
just
one.
melds together.
The icons in particular, we
Thousands of them. I think there are thousands of icons. For
thousands of icons, and not only that, but each one is just so handcrafted. It's just so lovingly painted. It was so amusing just to sit and watch how meticulously they would paint these things. And
I loved
concentrate
looking at all of these when I was younger.
on the colors and the form, and they're just fun to look at. And we actually, that was really part of the design from the art standpoint, was that you're looking at icons a lot in this kind of game, and that really is more than anything what's representing it, unless you're directly using that item in the world. So we knew that they had.
Yo, I don't know if you guys caught on, but early League of Legends, dude, they copied a lot of buttons. Like, some of the buttons looked so similar to WoW buttons.
to be big and colorful, and you really had to just get rewarded just by looking at it.
In the midst of schedules and everything, it's important not to get too bogged down and have fun. I think one of the things that defines a Warcraft is it kind of has a sense of humor. It doesn't take itself too seriously. At some points, that's kind of a challenge to.
Yeah, I guess it is
infuse
literally a
into
copy
this
of
role-playing
Dota
game. But
back then.
we did our best, and I think if you can work in development and just.
But
kinda,
certain abilities, like,
kinda
it was
enjoy
literally
kinda
almost
laugh
the
at it,
same.
and again, not take it too seriously. Just have fun.
I think one of the things that always would bring a smile to your face, even in the darkest days, is the old Shane cube. Whenever there's a model missing a texture or some error.
I don't remember this, but I remember like that. I don't know how to describe it. There was a face, like a button. I saw that.
We have a
lot.
producer, Shane, who accidentally got his face stuck on a piece of art that represents anything that doesn't display properly in the game. So he's all over the place, actually.
His face shows up in newspapers, articles, and cartoons.
Is that Samwise? I
and
don't know. Is it in the WoW macros?
Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3 were very important influences.
There was a
on
face. I don't.
our game, the World of Warcraft. So once again, the silhouettes,
Oh
colors, and
my god,
proportions,
dude.
we wanted to really mimic
Dude, this was my favorite game, chat. You have no idea how many hours I spent in this game.
a lot of the things that had been done previously
yet pull these out more
Oh
for
my
a
goodness.
down in the world third person or first person point of view rather than the sort of God mode view of playing overhead.
This was
in
so
RTS.
fun.
The perspective of the game definitely was a big influence on what we decided to accentuate and how we designed our characters. Just off the top of my head, a funny thing was that when we were originally designing this game, we were thinking about maybe taking it in a different direction, maybe a little darker or you know, a different look and feel. But we soon realized that Warcraft had a very established look, and that it would be a big mistake to deviate from that. So a lot of the typical characteristics of the characters' environments, the bright colors and the big silhouettes and shapes, we just stuck with it and just kept going. Carried that through the environments all the way down to the characters and creatures.
Color was
Hey,
very important, I think,
yo.
as anyone plays the game.
Wait, why didn't these make it? We don't have this. She was wearing like. Yeah, these didn't work,
There's a lot of
chat.
passion for color. With the
These didn't
creatures,
make it.
We actually found that less was more. Early on, we tried very, very sort of realistic, painting it almost to the point of photorealism, and they were beautiful pieces of art. But once they got into the world, it didn't really come across
Beautiful
as
pieces
simply
of
as the older
art.
games did. And we found that the more we kind of scaled it back and went more stylized with the color, we actually would get down to where literally we'd just pick like 2 or 3 basic colors
Yeah,
that
these
would be
shows
on a
look
creature,
badass.
and we would kind of use those in sort of over-the-top ways, like some tribal tattoos or some little accent around the waist, or even like a hairstyle would kind of key off of other colors of the body. But we really toned those back, and found the more that we kind of locked down colors tightly, the better they worked.
In addition to nailing
that
the
an
unique
undead?
look of Warcraft through the colors, we also had the shapes of the characters to work with. So proportions of the characters we found out were really key ways to distinguish our creatures and our characters from one another. So we tried to maximize the silhouettes of the characters, and maybe we'd pick out a certain aspect about them that we'd really want to accentuate. One creature had really big claws or a really disproportionate upper torso. and
sad
a
fist
tiny
weapons
head to
don't
accentuate
bang in
how
WoW.
big his muscles were. You'll notice that the dwarves are really short and stout, and the night elves are really elegant and tall and elongated.
We would see that we had these 2 different races, maybe they were both really cool, but we would pick up on the fact that, I don't know, these guys are they're kind of looking a lot the same from a
Right.
distance, and even though we really liked the way one of them maybe was proportioned already, we would go ahead.
Hey, yo, true female? Wait, these look cooler. I like that.
And start trying to alter that to give it some uniqueness.
Oh, I remember this poster was hung up in everyone's house, man. Everyone that played like Warcraft 3.
Generally, what we found was that we would end up with something that we liked even more, that was even more exotic or more.
I think
out
my
there,
brother
so
had
it
one
worked out
too.
well.
I guess our theme of things that we do is we just push it and keep going too far with it, and then go, oh my gosh, that's now just ridiculous looking, and then we just back it off a notch from that. As with every other aspect in the world of Warcraft, you kind of can divide it right down the middle as the 2 different factions, the Horde and the Alliance. With the races, we have the humans, the Night Elves, the Dwarves, and the Gnomes. For the Alliance, and on the Horde, the Orcs, Taurens, Undead, and Trolls. And right off the bat, we just tried to start brainstorming about what we could do to set these races apart from one another. What makes you feel really cool and unique that you're picking this race over all the others. The humans are going to be the one characters that everyone can associate with. They kind of have typical proportions, a little exaggerated, a little muscular, but they're kind of the familiar characters.
I love classic WoW human, chat.
The humans are going to be the one characters that everyone can.
That. I feel like retail human, male. They look a little goofy, man. Classic human male, they look cool. Not all of them. You gotta get the right combination, of course. But they look cool. There's like this face I always go with on my paladin. That one looks badass.
Can associate with. They kind of have typical proportions, a little exaggerated, a little muscular, but they're kind of
Muscular
familiar
is
characters
good.
that everyone will recognize on sight.
And Night Elves, once again, still muscular. I mean, it's always our theme. We always kind of go over the top with muscularity of our characters, but we decided much more of a lanky jungle dwarf.
Same with Knight of Male. I feel like Knight of Male look more badass in classic WoW than retail. Retail WoW, they look awkward when they like in the character creation. Something looks off. I will say like dwarves though, retail dwarves go hard. Like, so hard. I would choose retail dwarf over classical anytime. Yeah, some models on retails look super good. Some look better in classic.
Logs leaping over them.
I like night elf males
Very athletic.
in classic
very
better.
primal, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you'll even see it all in the intro cinematic for the game too. You'll
Oh,
see
dude, I wish you could make our night elf that big. Sheesh.
tried to capture these races in their environments, kind of.
Oh, dude,
demonstrating
imagine we
what
can make
they'll
them
do in their
that
natural
juiced.
habitat. The dwarves are pretty established now too. You know, they're
Wait, these are some badass
they're
arts.
just the short, squat, muscular, cave-dwelling
I remember
guys.
this one. This one was like
You know,
a
do a
popular
lot of
one.
mining and hunting and real
Yeah,
rustic
these are some like
characters,
clothes
real,
I
you know,
never saw
rough,
in WoW before,
kinda,
and I played
tromp
WoW all
around
my
in the
life.
snow. And so we just kept those themes
That
with
first
them as
dwarf
well, you
female
know, big
outfit
bushy
I've never
beards, A lot of
seen.
bright primary colors for their beards. There's bright red, bright orange. We also have, you know, grizzly gray and white and black. And as we were doing this too, we found out like hair color was super key with defining each race as well. So certain hair colors are only available to these races and not to others.
That
we
dwarf
didn't want
hunter,
to let the player
so badass.
necessarily choose any color for anything.
The gnomes kind of came in late into the game. We had gnomes come in with, you know, this sort of a need to add, we felt one more race per Alliance Horde. So the gnomes filled in on the Alliance side, and we have these kind of short, squat little comical characters that have sort of outrageous hairstyles. We felt with their small size, probably the best thing that we could do was to really over-exaggerate their head, and not only that, but what you always see on top of it, their hair. We had a lot of fun with some crazy beard mustache combinations to really start defining the gnome male in particular. The artists working on that would draw from some of the European and North American beard contests and mustache contests. Just completely like outlandish stuff, but it was a lot of fun and people would just get a kick out of it. So he implemented a lot of those just for flavor.
Damn, I wish we had like one shoulders. I like these stuff. Like Herald too, you just have one shoulder. I know in retail WoW you could transmog just one.
North
I
American
like
beard
that.
contest.
I wish you could have that in classic.
Just completely like outlandish stuff, but it was a lot of fun and people would just get a kick out of it. So he implemented a lot of those just for flavor. With the female, we went with a lot of just interesting like pom-poms and braided hairs that would just kind of wind well
What the?
up off
Dude, this
the
armor
head
is
and
sick.
almost create this sort of tower
like a
effect.
samurai.
It's really comical, but I think in the long run it really works because it's the one element that you're going to pick up on them as you're running around in the world.
I don't necessarily always think about it, but the hair creates such an interesting silhouette on the character. It's the
I don't
thing
know
that
what you guys
is
were
on
thinking with that hair. That hair is clapped.
on the top, and it's a really good element to take advantage of to really help distinguish.
I guess
one
this it kind of reminds me of like Star Wars though.
from the other.
I guess
So
it works with
definitely
that
goes
dress.
with the gnomes. On the opposite side of the spectrum,
Holy.
from the Alliance, we have the Horde, and that's the orcs, the Tauren, the undead, and the troll races. You know, once again, the orcs were already designed from Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. We initially tried to pioneer some different looks and feels for them, but with a lot of the design of this game, we just felt falling back on what was already established was the best route. They already looked just amazing and really cool, and so we stuck with what we were familiar with. They're just big, oversized, muscle-bearing, bodybuilding-looking guys with big, brutish faces. In addition to the orcs, there's the Tauren, and they're just the giant minotaur race. You know, even bigger than the orcs with the big bull heads. You know, they got the great horns,
say
and the
something
big
to the
manes,
shit.
and the really super top-heavy physiques that help distinguish them out from the other characters. You know, it's really cool to see these characters all lined up because from a distance you can always pick out who's the gnome, who's the dwarf, you know, who's the Tauren. And with them,
I'm sad
they were
Taurens
already
didn't
established as well from Warcraft series.
get their
so
totem
we just
weapons.
kind of went with what was already there.
Those are
Doing
cool.
the females again was a challenge, and now we kind of have this docile cow female character for them, you know?
Yeah.
Yo, female Tauren look cool here. I feel like classical female Tauren. Oh, they look so. That looks kind of cool though. She looks cool.
We really reined her in after a while. I mean, it almost became sort of a joke with our fans that it couldn't get much uglier than the Tauren female. So, as much as we didn't want to pull back our artistic license, we decided to go ahead.
Honestly, at least they have one. Dude, FF was supposed to have a female Hrothgar, and they're stalling so hard, man. They're trying to like open a gateway. How long have they been working on it now? They're trying to make a gateway for furries or something. Taking way too long. Scarf, thank you for the 2 months, man. 3 years, gotcha.
kind of rein them in and give them something unique to the male. We still obviously want to make them feel like an upright bovine, if you will, but softer tones, shorter snouts, the mouth not being so long and brutish, kind of ditching the overhanging teeth elements and really toning her horns back.
What
so
the
that she
fuck?
got
That this is one of the concept art for female Tauren? Yo, she looks powerful.
sort of a softer element to her, more upright as well. So she got much more mid-heavy, but slender at the same time, whereas the male really had that huge upper body bulk going on.
The third race for the horde was the undead, and I don't think there were any other races in other online games where you were able to play undead race.
Holy,
So we were
this
really
guy's like
excited about
rotting.
that. Initially, we
Andy.
went through probably a dozen different design concepts for what they would do and how they would evolve while you play them, and whether you would turn more into an ethereal type of creature or more of a Death Knight type of thing. But in the end, we just went with a character that you would be able to keep and retain throughout the course of your experience playing the game. So, you know, we have a bunch of really cool, different, wacky concepts for these creatures. There's dozens and dozens of drawings of them that we tried out different things, different proportions.
This is awesome.
And, you know, eventually we got this kind of hybrid undead, but kind of familiar looking character that's in the game.
We had gone the full gamut from sort of just a thin, pale, emaciated human, which very obvious from the get-go that just really wasn't exciting us, to these just hulking, heaping mounds of decaying flesh, you know, with evil eyes. And we're like, well, that, you know, that's certainly out there, but it's probably almost more bestial than what we want a player character to be. I firmly believe that it's important that there's some relatability to the character that you're playing, that there's still got to be some more down-to-earth element to them, even if they have like some very outrageous
So that looks like Eren Yeager.
We kind of realized we were going to have to find that sweet spot in the middle. What we ended up really opting to was trying to give them sort of the standard physique.
Wait, undead female? Why did I think they had like a missing... Huh, where did I get that idea from? I never seen undead female stomach like that.
But really play off of some decaying elements where they had some cool shapes.
I didn't know they had a
silhouettes
stomach. I thought they just had a
defined
bone there.
from, like a midsection kind
reason.
of being missing, or the mid part of their leg, or
I guess
arms
it's just the ribs.
missing, and then also with some really cool, like, fun hairstyles and little bone protrusions that would happen across their anatomy. We just had to make the other elements we had, such as clothing and things, kind of work around those. The trolls were added in as a counterpart to the
I
gnomes.
really wish they kept the buff trolls, but in Warcraft 3 they made the skinny soy jack trolls. This was a Warcraft 2
really
troll.
Wanted to have trolls in the game. We really, you know, wanted to see them alongside of the other Horde members because they're another great tribal, shamanistic kind of thing, so they fit in really well with the other races. We had the same challenges that we had with some of the other races, especially in regards to the females. We continually kind of
Yeah,
gone
Warcraft
round
3
and round
is
trying some
where
different
all the
elements with
skinny
females.
trolls came from.
Always trying to keep them tall.
Warcraft
and
2
lanky, but
trolls
we've
were
gone,
buff.
you know, round and round.
Holy shit, yo. I would play that. That looks kind of pog. Dude, she looks so strong. Dude, holy moly, man. I would let her hunt and I would stay home, man. Shit, dude.
Now with different iterations.
She's
of the
hunting for
face and the
sure.
Posture, trying to find something that still feels very much troll, but is still appealing to a broad range of
Wait,
players.
this is a cool concept. I kind of wish they stayed with this. This is awesome.
And one thing that we had learned from some of the other races was that it was actually important that we do certain things with the geometry so that it allowed us to have both attractive and non-attractive facial textures. And that was a quick
Whoa,
way
what
for
is
us
that
to be able
fist
to
weapon?
choose from the artist side just how much we would allow them to have, whether a player wanted to have something that was a little more scary and frightening and felt, you know, truly monstrous, or if they wanted to be a more attractive character that maybe would be a little more socially acceptable in the game.
You know, aside from all the player
Dude, I just want to say, I've been trying to farm this Khadgar's S8. I've been killing these guys, and holy, they're not dropping it.
that you get to play as in the game. The other huge element to
I'm scared of dying to
populating
the
world is
elite
all the
rare
monsters
spawn.
and creatures and bad guys and mobs and whatever you want to call them, the stuff you're hunting around in the world that you're
Murlocs are
interacting with.
shiny.
Creating monsters is just an ongoing process. It never seems like there's really enough. Anything from the little ambient squirrels that are running around in the world to the deers that are walking around to the other monsters, the gnolls or the spiders you're hunting, all the way up to the big epic dragons and then the crazy boss monsters you're fighting. I think currently in the game we have like over 500 unique creatures. And with each creature, we have color variations. So with all the color variations that we have to choose from with these characters, there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them throughout the world. And hopefully as you're adventuring and stuff, you're finding new ones and you're just discovering all kinds of cool stuff in the game.
We had a lot of established creatures.
I saw the
that came from
Albatross, the
Warcraft.
one that's like mega ugly, right? Let me see. Oh shit! Is it though? I feel like this is a male's face. This might be a troll. I don't know, man.
Universe, and particularly Warcraft 3, where suddenly creeps were being introduced, and that gave us more to pull from. We had gnolls and kobolds and all these cool little like secondary creatures that were in the world, and that very quickly became something we wanted to key off of. In fact, probably the gnolls and kobolds were some of our early tests where we really kind of hit where we were going with the style of the creatures, about how much detail that the artist would paint in, or the kinds of color palettes that would be used.
When we were able to recreate some of those key creatures, the gnoll or the kobold, spiders and other creatures like that, based off of concepts from Warcraft 3 and Warcraft 2, that really hit home for us, and we kind of knew the direction we were facing and where to keep going. So there's a lot of familiar creatures in the game. You're gonna have ogres and centaurs, all kinds of stuff that is
It should be live
already
now,
around from the
Loku.
previous Warcraft
SAVIX
games.
Night
The overarching
is
challenge
Neo.
of doing this
We named
the
it Neo.
online role-playing game was that it was a different perspective on a familiar franchise.
Super cool
So,
emo from Tammy.
Now we were having to create these characters at a much higher resolution.
I'm not
You
doing
could
this
see
because
them
I'm
from all
leaving.
angles all around, and you were up close and in the face against all these monsters. So it definitely took us a while to get on our feet and run with it, and to learn just how much detail was enough or how much was just too much, and we didn't need to do that.
Holy,
'cause
this guy's a juicer, man.
we knew we had to do hundreds of them, so we needed to find that healthy balance, and so I think we did. At a glance, I think all the characters really seem to they feel like they're in the same world. All the different artists really got the similar style. Halfway in the middle, towards the end of the project, you didn't know who made what. They just all fit. They all fit with each other.
We did a lot of
That's
sort
good.
of creative reuse on the models. As our library grew, we could take more and more elements that were sort of already constructed for another creature or character, and we would realize that that was a perfect element for something new that we were doing, that we could at least reuse that. And by the time we were done, we had made sure from the artistic standpoint that it really wasn't recognizable. You didn't just feel like it was some limb slapped on from another
Nubians.
model, but it
AQ.
definitely really pushed our pipeline and timeline. We could get things done much more quickly and efficiently, and it
I'm
would
going
stay at
full
a very
Affy
high quality
Mai.
because we could spend the time to build any one element
going
once,
full
like a pair
Sendo.
of wings for a dragon or something like that, and that could be used again and again on other creatures so that it really wasn't recognizable anymore.
For a lot of our creatures, we start with a basic concept sketch, just a drawing. Sometimes it's a doodle on a napkin, sometimes it's a really nice high
Wow, Basilisk looks so cool on the concept art.
resolution painting, in
That's
on the
badass.
computer. More times than not, there'll
Yeah,
be
you go with
dozens
what
of
you
drawings
like,
for the
Mai.
same
It's
one creature,
hardcore.
especially early on in the project.
I
where
say
we're
go
really
with
trying
what
to,
you like. What
brainstorm
abilities you
everything in the
use
game.
more.
We don't want to shut any idea down necessarily, and so
Shit, yo, these
so
are
many people.
Harpies? Yo.
I can say I think almost all the artists on
Harpies
our
kind
team
of
took
boggers in the
concept.
chat.
Everyone's always drawing, coming up with cool
Wait, dude, these look so cool. They look way cooler than the game.
ideas. We definitely have people that specialize in it, but it's safe to say that everyone's always contributing in the idea phase of designing the creatures, whether it's a established Warcraft creature or something new that we have to create to fill a new environment.
Once we had these really beautiful concepts that different people had submitted, we kind of would sift through them and find the elements that were the strongest, and sort of like what the team agreed on. So we'd take those elements, maybe we'd even re-concept one last drawing of it to make sure that we liked all those elements together, and then that would get passed on
These are really
to
cool.
art director for approval. Once that was done, it was passed off to our meshers, and the meshers simply build the geometry that creates the 3D sculpture in the game. So after the meshing is completed on the model, it's passed on to the texture
Concept of
artist.
reality.
This can be the same person or another person. We're pretty flexible.
To be honest,
There
that's how
are
it
a lot of
was
team and a lot of guys
in a
can do
lot of the
different
newer
things. So,
armor. The concept art
once
looks
that's
fucking
passed on and ready
badass,
for
and
that
in game
next phase,
the armor doesn't
the
look that
textures are
good.
applied, and the textures are simply a painting that is wrapped onto the model that creates the colors and the illusion of details and depth on the given creature or character.
So once the creatures have been modeled and textured and eventually animated, you know, they're placed in the world, and they place them in these little groups in all the different environments, you know, and they take a lot of care into how they place them to make them look like they're you know, inhabiting their surrounding areas, and that they're doing different things on their own, roaming around, patrolling, fighting all the different creatures. It's a process that requires a lot of disciplines, all the way from the concept drawing to the actual creation on the computer to the designers that put it in the game, and you know, eventually you're fighting it and getting the cool stuff that it has to drop off.
The pinnacle of our creature development and also what the player will experience in the game was obviously
Small feline
boss
giant.
creatures, and these we would just really go all out on. The schedule would suddenly relax a little, and the artist would have
Wait,
more
I didn't
time
even notice these were seashells until now.
to work on them, and more polys could be spent, more texture resolution could be spent. So
These
were
guys definitely
larger
have a
and
lot, yeah.
more
I could
detailed,
see they
crisper,
spent a lot.
to hold up to the sizes that they were going to be in the game, because they could be just magnificent sizes in some of these dungeons. You know, I don't want to give a lot of some of the fun stuff you'll find in the game away, but obviously some of the staples of fantasy, like dragons and giant.
Wow,
robotic
these dragons look
boss monsters that
so
you can
good.
fight. You'll find these all throughout the world, and the artists really look forward to being able to work on these, because it was sort of.
I feel like the art goes
the testing
hard.
of everything that you had
The
learned
3D,
building,
like that dragon looks so much cooler
all
in the concept art than the real
throughout the
3D.
world, and the artists really look forward to being able to work on these, because it was sort of the testing of everything that you had learned building some of our smaller and more staple creatures that are obviously just as important, but these were the time when you really got to just go all out and use probably every skill set and every tool that you had figured out on the way to creating these things.
You know, we tried to divvy them up amongst all the different character artists, and so, you know, hopefully
Yeah,
everyone got
I'll
to
link
do
it to
one
you.
or
I was
work
gonna
on
link it at
some
the end,
element of
but
one,
I
'cause
can give
they
you
were just
now.
really fun to do. They were, like Brandon was saying, they're just, you get to use everything that you learned, and it was always a real charge to see that finally walking around in the game, and actually players like running in fear from these, you know, 20-foot creatures just storming around. And you know, it's a real kick, and when you watch players reacting to the different creatures and the art that you help produce, it's really invigorating. It's really cool to see that, so kind of what keeps you going.
Dungeons and architecture was an amazing area to work with. With the Warcraft world, you were never really, in a lot of the Blizzard games, you never really got to enter the world. You were never able to go inside of the city and venture within the tavern. And it was exciting to work with
Fallen Tower, entrance to under. Oh.
the team and actually entering the world, you know, opening that door to that crypt and going into that temple and seeing this whole new
Boat.
world in there. And we had a lot of freedom involved in that, and a lot of the
Entrance
artists
from the
got to
ocean. Dude,
really
this
use
looks
their
insanely
imaginations
cool.
and pull from things that didn't exist before.
This is in Darkshire now, right?
And we're able to mesh that into the world. And it was really exciting to see this whole other world, part of Warcraft that people haven't seen before. And that was
And these are
truly
just
amazing to
ideas.
see.
It was really exciting to see each city come online. I think everyone was really excited to see, you know, what the next city is going to look like, because they're all so different. The
CG.
Dead Mines really set the bar for, you know, for the rest of the dungeons and the
Dead Mine
interiors.
is so
It's
good.
not just an area you just go in now and
That
choose
mine
some
is
stuff.
so
I mean,
good.
there's all kinds of little interactive elements to it, almost like stories unfold as you dig deeper into it. All of a sudden, you know, these miners look a little weirder than you were suspecting, and all. I don't want to give it away or anything, but you know, when you get to the bottom and you get to the final boss or whatever, I mean, it's just its own little epic journey that you know, who knows how many hours it'll take you to get through.
We've never done this before. This is a totally new area for Blizzard. I know this type of game is too, but I just wanted to really say that artists that worked on this particular area, the dungeons and the cities, just did an amazing job. And early on, they went through a lot of trials and things like that.
Getting lost in
And
WC
they
Cat. Dude, I
really
got
came
lost
through.
too when I
They
was
really
little.
did a great job. And
I'm playing
I really
Paladin.
appreciate it.
we had so much
And Rogue.
Warcraft history to draw from, and so again, this was our first opportunity to translate something
Good
from a
times.
real-time strategy game to the role-playing game. So something as simple as the blacksmith structure or the human farm. Instead of the top-down little piece of art that you're used to seeing, we had to design it all, the building, the structures, what the signs outside of it look like, how someone can tell that they're in front of a blacksmith, placement of anvils and tools, and the layout of the interior of the building, what's functional, what they were able to do, and the illusion they were able to create with just the flat walls, and just what they were able to paint, and the colors, and the lighting, and maximizing their assets. There probably wasn't a day that people, saw the work that they were doing and just couldn't believe that they were getting it to look like that in our engine.
That team actually pushed the rest of the art staff too. The dungeon team really just did some amazing work, and the rest of the
Yeah, dude, this place had so much detail.
team would see that and push to be at that level. And I remember some of the first stuff that came through that group. It was stunning. I was like, wow, that is the Warcraft style. I mean, they nailed it. It was a great job.
Yeah, I could still vouch just about that.
The artists
man.
really push each other, to do better, and everyone thrives off that and thrives off each other.
There's a lot of history there. There is a lot of depth, and the team worked very closely with Chris Metzen and other people in the company to make sure that these elements are tried and true. And
Thank you, Mike.
they actually took those ideas and ran with them, and they've done just an amazing job. They're very, very particular about.
Is that still in Orgrimmar?
And they've done
I know something's there, but I don't know if it's the exact same thing
just
there.
an amazing job. They're very, very particular about, gameplay.
It's not there?
It was
Okay.
pretty exciting to see that.
I'd say early on with our dungeons too, it was difficult to get that organic look. We tried a number of different programs early on, different methods of building, and ultimately we got it, but it was definitely a challenge. We spent some time trying to determine what the size of the city was going to be. I mean, we didn't know how big a city should be. I mean, are people going to get lost? What's a good size? What feels right without getting lost but doesn't feel too small?
And it's still epic and exciting to venture into and stuff. And I think in the end they ended up putting dungeons and little instance.
Am I weird for saying... when I was younger it was huge, but now that I'm older, it's like a decent size. Like, they nailed it. This is a perfect size. But at the same time, I kind of want the major cities to be bigger now, man. I want it to be bigger. It feels more epic.
Where people would actually have to go to a city to fight.
I think
stuff like
back
that.
then it
So,
was
they have
perfect
more of a
size.
function than just
Perfect
this
size.
is where you go to sell your items or buy your goods.
In my mind, I can look at some of the dungeons that I'm just thinking about right now, and I'm just clearly just the definitive look
Yeah, I
they
agree.
have
The
for Night Elves
old
is
Iron
so
Forge was
different than
so
humans, just the lighting values and the color schemes are different, and how more organic the Night Elves are than the humans. And
I love Night Elf Zone. I feel like it sucks that they're so isolated in that corner. Oh, you guys can't even see my map. And back then there was no auction house there. It's just the connection kind of sucks.
yeah, you can relate more to the humans.
Yeah,
when you see
same.
that
I saw the
orc,
video on
see
the old Iron Forge.
Orgrimmar,
Old
it's
Iron
just
Forge
like
was
you just
so
wanna explore
massive,
that.
chat.
If you
And
go
it had
to
like
Stormwind,
layers of
the
second floor
opening
and
gate
what?
is
It's so
huge
cool.
and oversized. You cross the bridge, it's aligned with all the heroes. There were concepts for it, and then it was built and put in the game, and tried to just hit you over the head, make it memorable, make the silhouette of the parapets and the towers, and really striking and resemble the race.
I think another big thing too is everyone has their favorite city, whether it's the Undercity or Stormwind or Ironforge or Orgrimmar or Darnassus. We want all the cities to be on the same level. Obviously we wanted Ironforge to be super memorable, and we wanted Darnassus to be
They are very
exactly
memorable.
that too. And it was kind of funny to see how people were like, they would rank all the cities, and then this one would move up a couple rankings, and it's nice to see that all the cities really just turn out fantastic. I mean,
And we have Thunder Bluff too. way
I
up on
forgot
a
about Thunder Bluff. Yeah.
Massive sort of mesa structure, which is just beautiful.
Thunder Bluff
Exactly.
is
I
good.
mean, just when you think dungeon is this dark hole in the ground, you go to a city like Thunder Bluff, and it just blows you away because it's just not what you expect. I mean, you don't expect to see giant windmills and these these just amazing looking architecture, these teepees, and it's just
Totems and
big.
yeah.
I would expect like the newer Warcraft team to have better PR and training, but dude, these guys like they're cooking. I feel like I said it before. They're so passionate.
Yeah, it's really
The
a
way
treat
they
to see.
express
I know a lot of time in
everything.
development, you work on a project
I
like
feel
this for
it,
a long
man.
time,
I feel
and
it,
you're
brother.
so close to it, you don't really appreciate it as much because you're just so close to it. But with this project,
these
it's
guys
like
legitimately
every
made these
once in
worlds.
a
I
while
can
you see
feel it.
something that just really inspires you, and the team really worked hard, and some of this stuff is just so memorable.
I think it was kind of neat too, because each city would set the bar a little bit more. You know, Ironforge would get created and they would say, wow, that's amazing. I think we should go back and revisit Darnassus now. And then we'd spend weeks on redoing Darnassus or parts of it, and then they would come back and go, you know what, Ogremar could really use some touching up now. And it was constantly, I mean, even, you know, we're getting close to shipping or whatever, and we're still revisiting the cities. We're still constantly just keep outdoing each other. And so it's this great cycle in the end. It's just going to, you know, make for a more fantastic environment.
I think that's true for the whole game.
That's
absolutely,
This is a game of iteration. I mean, everything has been touched and retouched again and again to make it better and better.
This world has always been sort of divided by the Alliance and the Horde. You know, we've always had the orcs and the humans
Ballista.
clashing together, and now, you know, as the franchise grows, we have more and more races that are becoming involved with the conflict and taking sides. So we really wanted to get across that this world, sort of the world itself, felt divided. That within the Alliance lands, you got a lot more of sort of a lush, beautiful forest and valleys, fields, jungles. It's very
Damn, Yasa,
colorful
you beat
and
me to
beautiful
it,
most of the
man.
time. You'll find this very inviting and warm. As opposed to that, you'll run through the Horde lands and you'll find that there's this very desolate theme of
Chad, dude, these guys deserve a permaban though. Like, I feel like they're just trying to have fun, right? Do we just mod him? VIP him? Nah, he's gonna post another one. Watch. If you unban them, they just post another one. It's either they post another one or say, I'm sorry, sir. I've seen them too much.
sand and rock and just brushy barrens and they're even named as such. You know, you have the Thousand Needles and
The Barrens.
and yeah, I mean, we even like to the names themselves, we really push sort of that flavor. It's just a very overall theme. I think anyone's really going to pick up on that as soon as they decide to play Alliance or Horde. They're going to see a very big contrast.
I think of the Alliance, you think of lush and green. You think of the Horde and orcs, you think of, you know, dusty red and orange. And that's, you know, to make, you know, each region of the world just exceptionally iconic.
They really captured that, because I always complain about the Cheeto dust and being dry. Like, they nailed it. If that's what they were going for, they nailed it. Because every WoW player complained about walking around in dead barrens and it's dry and shit. They nailed it.
With the environment design for World of Warcraft, we really wanted the environments to have a really handcrafted feel. We wanted the terrain to really have that feel that it was created, you know, by hand. We really wanted to make sure that all the little details were embellished to the point, you know, the viewer could tell that it just wasn't computer generated. For example, like the palettes and the detail in the environment, we really wanted to make sure that the viewer got rewarded with a lot of detail and things like that.
So we treated them just as key as the characters, as the monsters, and everything else.
Absolutely.
There's not any one element of our game that stands out too far above the rest. Is that we treated the environments, the tile sets, everything just as important as a character, as a weapon. You know, everything received that equal amount of just real handcrafted treatment.
A lot of the artists too actually were, you know, hiking fanatics, and you know, we have some people that are really outdoors type artists, and they really bring that to the table. They, you know, they talk about like North Carolina or Pennsylvania, and you know, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out just visually what's the most interesting angles to approach things.
We didn't just isolate out terrain and just think of a lot of high-res textures or, you know, high-res geometry for the terrain. We realized that it was just as crucial that the terrain marry with lighting, with the fog. All of these elements were very important to pull together. And, you know, just in layman's terms, we just pulled a lot of old school tricks to try to get across a lot more than what we're really doing technically, and keep all this under wraps where people could still afford to enjoy.
Why does this look like... I don't know how to describe WoW, man. It's old and it looks collapsed, but it's like good collapsed. Or at the back in the time, it wasn't collapsed, but if I look at games like Terra or Ion or Guild Wars 1, which is like equivalent kind of to Classic WoW 2004, those games look extremely like mega collapsed, right? Yeah, it's like the good collapsed. Kind of like that cat, yeah. It's like, it's collapsed, but it's cute, right? Timeless, is that what it means? Yeah, the art style like lives on, man. Even for new MMOs nowadays, I don't know if it's just me, but most of them like look very similar. Good example is like Genshin, and there's like these other games, but I don't know the names, but they all look like similar, right? Even for MMO, there's like that style where everything looks so similar. I've been saying this for so long, people call me crazy. I know what you're talking about. Your name is wild, by the way. What kind of name is that? His name is Royal Nipple. I'm a retail Andy, but I gotta say DF looks worse than Classic does. I was gonna point out something when I was looking at like the whole city. You know how in Orgrimmar, like Classic WoW armors and mounts fit in? I think retail, it's just been alive for so long that I don't like seeing... I think in IRL it doesn't matter if you have like colorful hair or not, but in game, in WoW and like Orgrimmar, where it's supposed to be like the scenery fits or concept fits, having like super bright hair, it looks weird in the game. For me at least. And if it's a mount that's like super colorful, it feels weird. Like retail, you can't go back anymore. Like they just have that stuff. But I feel like that kind of ruins the immersion for me at least, I'd like to say. Have you seen the new transmog they want to bring in for the Love is in the Air? I have not seen. I gotta say, some of the retail transmog look awesome, man. Some of them are silly, some of them are super cool. Some of them are super cool. Retail animations are dog, they ruined the game. I will say running animation for a few races looks silly. I could definitely agree with that. I wouldn't say it destroyed it completely. I still think there are some good things in retail WoW. But human male running is goofy. Night Elf standing still looks goofy and whatnot. What is this? What in the world? Dude, is this real? Nah, this is not real, man. You're lying. Fuck, it looks real. It looks like retail graphic. That sounds like him. Yo, Blizzard, he's in pain. Shut him down, Blizzard. Shut him down. He's in pain, man. End him. I'm skipping this so we can watch the video chat. What the fuck? This is real? I mean, I think it's like all fun, but retail WoW, they can add in whatever they want. Like at this point, it doesn't matter. But if they add in like new transmog or new gear into like Classic, I would like it to like fit the theme of WoW. Right? In retail, it's too late. Like too many things are like that.
A nice frame rate. And
like retail, it doesn't matter. Let them do what they want. In Classic, I kind of would like them to make it fit Classic WoW.
The beautiful color studies, which you'll see as we're talking about this.
The game is about a game of trees. You have to have good trees in these kind of games. You stare at the terrain all the time. and we had some of the artists working on some of the trees. You'll notice that we have a really wide range of design for trees. We spent many years looking at the trees and studying them, and they're really like the glue that holds everything together.
We were working on one of our earlier zones, and we concepted tree after tree after tree and built tree after tree after tree, and I remember laughing when I realized that we probably had about 50 iterations of this one tree that we just kept refining and trying to get it, as reasonable as possible as far as,
I don't think they all delivered in the game, but yeah, I could see they put a lot of time into the trees. I mean, fuck, they're all different. I just noticed I never really looked at trees in WoW, dude.
Counts and texture counts.
I know in retail WoW,
we
trees look
probably through
insanely
weeks
good.
of collective testing on some of those trees over and over again, and then once we had those, it was sort of a framework.
WoW is Game Boy. WoW is boys game. Retail WoW is girls game. That's how I feel.
I felt like that was a really key point in development for the environments.
For the record, she is a girl, chat, saying this.
Us in it.
I know some people will go like, oh, that guy's sexist. More deal sexist. She's not. She's a girl, okay?
Took us a while.
I gotta make that clear.
But, the initial prep.
It's like that with Locky too. Locky always says like, woman sucks. I'm like, dude, you're a fucking woman. Stop saying that. Everyone's gonna think you're a man.
Our team of environmental artists
it looks sexist.
spent a lot of time developing their
but
techniques.
She's a woman and she's just making a joke.
Learning what
so I need to make
patterns
that clear.
look best when you're running through the game. We were really particular about hills and rises and visibility.
The feel of it, yeah.
Almost too many hills where, for gameplay reasons, it was harder to see the spawns and things like that. So in addition to just making a beautiful looking scene, we had to work closely with game design. We a lot of times had to compromise on a lot of things to make sure that gameplay was still there.
That's good.
We wouldn't just do one of them for a zone, we'd also do one for different times of day. So we'd have one that was drawn to illustrate what the daytime light settings would be. We would do some for the evening time settings. We found that the sunrise and sunset were some of the most fun values to work with and offered some of the best lighting.
We actually enjoyed them so much, a lot of times we would purposely kind of let the keyframing be very loose. Mornings and evenings actually bleed in very heavily to noon.
Dude, I actually feel like they could have done so much more with Classic WoW. Seeing all their arts, I feel like not all of them made it in, but some of them look so cool.
So that you got to enjoy some of that dusty sort of feel.
Happy Thanksgiving, boys.
It was just more dramatic and, just pretty.
Basically,
really
the sunset lasts for like 8 hours in our game or something. Just because it looks so cool, it just runs all day.
We wanted to make sure that the palettes of the zone reflected somewhat in the race, very subtly. For example, the undead area of Tirisfal Glades, we wanted to kind of keep it cool colors, muted.
Yeah.
For the night elf areas in Teldrassil, we wanted to infuse some of that color back in there, and we were careful to keep the palette, I don't know, maybe 2 colors, trying to keep it simple as possible.
If you run around like sort of in the undead starting area, you can kind of check out the little vegetation growing on the ground. And
dude, I never looked at a tree until that guy mentioned it. There's a lot of different tree shapes. I thought they just copy pasted all of them.
Themes of the undead.
I just noticed it
just
now.
Vegetation, just for fun little flavor, and vines crawling up and choking out these purple flowers and things. So even down to that degree, the art team kind of paid attention to the details.
They definitely took advantage of every little area. I think some of the grasses have cobwebs, infused in it a little bit, and hopefully like a crate or a barrel in the undead starting area, it's going to look and have its own look and feel compared to a crate or a barrel in the human starting area. And everything from the pallets to, the wood having more cracks and broken nails.
You know what retail is? Okay, retail WoW right now is, first it started off as the older big bros. They like made their Lego world, but they got too old. And they passed down the Lego to their younger brother. And the younger brother is like building on it. And it gets passed down to the younger sister. And they get passed down to the younger brother. And like they're just like building upon. It's just like different artists now, right? I think that's why it changed so much, as well as I guess the dates, right? But I could definitely see the older brothers were going for that feel of dark and everything. And now it's just super colorful.
knife scratches in it or whatever. It just, they definitely took it, all the artists definitely took advantage.
We should put a lot of time into designing trees because people will spend so much time looking around. We don't want them to look the same. SAVIX after 19 years. Oh shit, I never saw the... Yeah, because like I'm leveling and PvPing. I never looked at the details, but once they like mention it, I could see it, right? It's like some people working on the thumbnails too. You don't really see everything, but once they like talk about it, you're like, oh shit, I do see that. I do see like the shadows added or the light effects added or the little small details in the back. Like people don't really notice because it's like a side thing or you just click it once and you're in there. So them talking about it, yeah, I get to see that.
If they got to paint a texture for it, they definitely used every pixel to represent the environment that this prop was going to be set into. So, I mean...
I know, I totally agree. And I think one of the things that we strive for, too, is just the uniqueness of what we want to do. We want to make sure that the zones look as good as possible as far as, like, if you were to take a screenshot of our game and you see it in a magazine, it looks different. It has a certain look to it that you're not going to find easily. Working on a game of this scope.
Yeah, I never fucking looked at a tree. Now it's like I look at the tree, chat. Look at the tree. Where's Clegg, man? That guy's a tree IRL. Like, I'm looking at trees now.
Detail really pushed the art staff to really just think about what actually we're doing. I mean,
look, there's so many different type of trees, man. There's a thick ass tree. There's a skinny pea palm tree looking ass. Different shapes. Different form. That's a skinny penis tree over there. Dude. Holy.
The usual type of...
I'm not the only one. There's no way, right? You guys see the trees too.
Things we're used to making that you're creating an entire world. You're creating the atmosphere and lighting and terrain and the look and feel. And sometimes it's really interesting. You'll be working on a piece of environment and you'll get stuck and then you'll drive home and see the sunset or see some kind of imagery that inspires you. So and then you go back to work the next day and you're like, oh, you know, I saw this, you know, the sunset yesterday and it totally changed what we should do.
Yeah, we had lots of just elements to work with in the editor for creating the world. You know, we had the directional lighting, the ambient lighting, the sun color, the moon color, fog color, and all the gradations of colors in the sky. And I know Brandon did most of that.
Do you think developers still think like this?
So many of the zones, you know.
I think they do still think like this. And I will say, fuck, man, I don't want to offend like artists. Because I went to art school too, right? And I think getting inspired and trying to take their niche or getting inspired and influenced to like create your own style is good. But nowadays, I'm going to say it, chat. I'm going to say it. There's a lot of copycatters. Like they just copy, they just steal it. They're not getting influenced, they just take it. And they take it as their own. And I feel like a lot of artists nowadays, there's a lot of them that looks the same. But it's because the guy they're copying from is so good that they just take it, man. And when they get in interviews, they don't give them credit. Like, oh, I was inspired by like Jack or Jake, whatever, right? They just say, oh, I created this. But you could tell if you were in the art field, you can tell when somebody like yoink someone's style. You can't get a job unless you copy the studio style. I know, but some of them, I still see a lot of art on Twitter. And, oh, dude, there's so many that look same. And there's still people that has their own style and they rock the shit out of it. I think that's fantastic. But a lot of them, a lot of copiers, man. A lot of copiers. Sakami-chan still has good art, but it looks like AI art. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the problem with AI too. Like AI is just, you order them, hey, I want you to copy this style, but make it this, and then they like print it out now, right? It's kind of like that.
The watercolor, cloud color, and so we just take our time and put these together and, you know, in the right order, playing off each other, the right colors, the right settings to create.
And everyone's gonna get offended if you call them
overall,
out.
We
They're
really
gonna be, no, I didn't copy. What are you talking
have
about,
that
right?
old
But everyone gets inspired by something, man.
Or that NC Wyeth, that warm feel, that handcrafted feel. I know we say that a lot, but we really wanted to have that look, and even in the trees, if you look at the trees, you know, it's very
Good luck
hand-painted,
on
all
leveling,
the
man.
textures, and we were careful how things blend together, how trees would blend into the environment. We were constantly racking our brains about the tile set, what was too busy. You know, initially a lot of the roads were too busy and too dark, and we had to simplify those, and it was definitely a learning process, you know, for everyone. But kudos to the team, though.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Chris Metzen. I'm the Vice President of Creative Development for Blizzard and the lead world designer for the series for the past, 9 years or so, or ever since Warcraft 2. Wanted to talk a bit today about kind of the story of Warcraft and how the world unfolded, specifically from the series RTS roots and up through the creation and development of certainly World of Warcraft. And also kind of how it's translated to the D&D game series that we've been creating with White Wolf Publishing, some of the novels we've had a chance to put out. Warcraft's become kind of a big fantasy juggernaut, strangely enough, after all these years. It's kind of interesting how it has unfolded. Essentially Warcraft is, if you figure that most modern fantasy is kind of based off of Lord of the Rings or Tolkien's work, he kind of had amalgamated a lot of fantasy ideas, elves and magic weapons and wizards and huge epic scope histories, weaving together. Warcraft's essentially kind of third or fourth generation fantasy, which is kind of crazy these days, where you have kind of a lot of video game fantasy universes becoming the new school kind of settings. You have a lot of interactive games kind of taking place in these worlds that are essentially phantoms of Tolkien's vision back in the day. Warcraft's certainly part of that tradition, elves and dwarves and dragons
the
and
AMV editing stuff. I mean, I like that.
One of the
Paul.
things
That's
we
good.
always thought was a good idea
people give
is
credit. I think that's
holding
awesome,
on to
man.
the more traditional fantasy archetypes, because that's what most people kind of glom onto. It's that familiarity of dwarves and elves and magic rings and things that kind of define what fantasy is. We found that people like that. People are really drawn to that. It's a strength of the genre, whether in video games or just fiction. If you're reading a novel, it's the familiarity that really sings to people over and over. But we've always liked the idea of kind of spinning those archetypes on their head. What happens when elves go crazy as a race? What happens when dark elves suddenly are heroic and noble? What happens when orcs, that are typically mindless and brutal? What happens when they're kind of given some nobility? And we can kind of begin to identify with these races and cultures kind of beyond that surface kit that we've been sold all these years through various products and media. So it's been pretty crazy kind of developing the World of Warcraft and trying to change it up a bit, keep it familiar enough to people who are interested in fantasy, but kind of shake it up and drive it boldly forward to those who kind of want a little more out of their gaming experience, which is certainly our core role. It's kind of been a strange process, developing the kind of geography of the World of Warcraft as the storyline has unfolded. When you're developing RTS games,
I remember seeing these maps and every loading
hard
screen.
Parameter on how the world unfolds, right? You just kind of need maps to make up and kingdoms to destroy. It's a very planar design. You just kind of draw 2D on a page. What a landmass that looks interesting and try and dot it with interesting stuff. I imagine a lot of RTS games are kind of designed that way, just kind of in a very planar sense. It started to get interesting, when we started talking about World of Warcraft and expanding this place and these locales to be more 3D, to be more, immersive, places that you'd actually run around in, instead of just being RTS maps and very planar. How does it begin to translate to an immersive world experience? It was kind of weird, shifting gears from the RTS mindset to the RPG mindset. We kind of always knew, since Warcraft 2, we always knew that, as we expanded, Warcraft 1, we had, the kingdom of Stormwind, the land of Azeroth, and it was the conflict of that game was pretty much contained within that place. The orcs come through the swamps of Sorrow and 301 Forest and attack Stormwind. The scope of that conflict was pretty small. As we started talking about Warcraft 2 and the idea of expanding the two armies, certainly we had the orcs and the humans at that point. With Warcraft 2, we wanted to expand more races into those groups, so the human group became the alliance, with elves and dwarves and gnomes. Reciprocally, the orc group expanded to include forest trolls and ogres and death knights and all sorts of good creepy guys. But in doing so,
Yo,
for
enjoy
our
dinners,
world context,
cars.
we wanted to show where these creatures came from, and have a greater sense of ecology and a greater sense
Because
of
ogres are
world.
equivalent to knights, and
So
they
it became necessary to
the
create
knights can heal
Cosmodon,
though.
or, the
But you
areas
gotta upgrade them.
the dwarves came from, or Lordaeron, and ultimately Quel'Thalas, where the secondary human kingdoms and elves came from specifically.
Those elves are so cool.
So a lot of the design decisions with the two armies and kind of expanding them predicated building the
Original
world and
DK,
building
yeah,
it out
original
further.
DKs were there too.
As Warcraft 2 completed, and we created Draenor, for the Warcraft 2 expansion set. Draenor being the place where the orcs came from. It
I remember
became
my
clear
brother
that
watching
in the
this.
core world of Azeroth, we would
All the
need
time.
more continents, and wouldn't it be
Dude, back then we didn't have YouTube too, so if he wanted to show his friends, he would beat it up to this and be like, "Yo, come here, this is the last cinematic," and we would all go and watch it. And every time he wanted to show us, he would have to beat the whole fucking game,
interesting
man.
to imagine
So we could see
more
this
ancient realms.
30-second
that
clip
had never heard of orcs
of the
and
gate
humans,
being blasted
where this
by
conflict might
Khadgar, I
spill
believe.
over, and thus dredge up, kind of new mysteries and a new mythological cycle for the setting. Thus, we had been talking about creating Kalimdor, this ancient land of the Night Elves, and we kind of really warmed to the idea quickly of Dark Elves in this context being the good guys and being kind of the eldest race, the keepers of ancient mystery. So it was kind of interesting to talk about Kalimdor and these dark primordial forest lands and the barrens in the middle, lands that were once lush but kind of destroyed by some kind of apocalypse. It was interesting to imagine Kalimdor having been affected by some huge explosion. Again, it's probably a fantasy archetype, to have your world shattered in some great way. I mean, I've seen it in 100 different
Yeah,
stories.
that tree looks cute. Doesn't it? Look at that guy. It's
But
like a
that
little,
got us thinking.
Why do people
game
have the
design-wise,
tree?
We were in more recent years talking about Warcraft 3. Let's talk about what that would be. Are we still just talking two armies?
It's a little
Are we
why
talking
people happy.
expanding that in our conversations? Certainly we wound up with the undead and night elves, but at one point we were definitely considering the Burning Legion.
That's a
to be
civic
race.
tree now?
A lot of our
Fuck,
discussions
man.
about the Burning Legion stemmed from that demons are cool and would have been a neat army set, but kind of from the story context of the night elves and Kalimdor and their shattered land, and was there more backstory with them and the demons? And
Trees are
I mean,
cool,
was there
man.
a
When I
greater
was losing a
conflict in the
game
world that kind of predicated
and I wanted to win,
the story that we were seeing
I would
unfold
literally
in the
send
games,
all my
that we had
units
published up to that point, World
and
War
get
I,
my
War II.
trees up and
And we
like
definitely
pre-send the
wanted War
trees because
III
they
to
move
kind
like
of encompass all these elements. The night elves reawakening,
they were fucking
visiting
slow, but
Kalimdor.
you can
We
send
wanted
all
the
your
newer
trees
races,
and your
like orc
troops. That's
communities,
like the
to kind of
finale,
be
though.
thrown into
That's
this
when it's
ancient
cold
conflict
red.
and
You
see
send
this ancient
everything.
land and
Because
really
night
have
elf
the
buildings
events of
can
the past
attack.
kind of
I guess
come full circle
undeads can
with the
too.
resolution of that game. So a lot of times it's the game design.
Criminal,
and the
what's up,
kind of
man?
loose
Bean sub,
story
welcome.
threads that wind up
I
predicating.
think he's eating a
what we
fat
built,
meal for
in the game
Thanksgiving, and
experience
we're
that
gonna
we tailor
tomorrow
to it. There's always
blast
been
SM
a
together.
drive that we have had to build a lot of detail
What's up?
into our world and
What's
build
up?
a lot of backstory into our settings. Specifically, when creating strategy games, it's just difficult to tell a story in that context. You're commanding units, it's real time, and the battlefields often look very similar. It's hard to get a sense of context or a sense of story progression. The theory was that if you have a rich backstory and you have it play out to any degree in the RTS context, that it helps to be immersive and it helps players to kind of get your world and get this setting, and it makes it special. It makes it stand out against the pack. And we've seen many RTS games over the years, and one of the things that potentially made Warcraft stand out past the gameplay was just the character of the setting and the fact that it
Can you
was
see my
kind
chest
of
here?
deep, and had and just had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of characters, a lot of intrigue, a lot of history. It kind of gives it its own identity, really. So as we looked to translating all of that to World of Warcraft specifically, it was a little daunting, but it was a great deal of fun. Looking back on the world we had built up to that point. So it was a really cool process of kind of extrapolating, from maps in 8-year-old game manuals and trying to kind of draw them out and really flesh these lands out and these histories out and these cultures. Proved to be a pretty big task, but a fun one. At this point in time, as we're looking at the home stretch on our shipping product for a while, it's crazy how this world has gone from, kind of this very thin idea, thin wallpapering on an RTS series, and it's really blown into just this juggernaut of context and flavor and atmosphere that's defined by 40 artists and programmers and really creative designers. There's just so many heads involved in this thing and kind of creating the vision of this in the world. It's really been crazy to kind of watch this thing grow, kind of take on its own life. It's, at the end of the day, I mean, of course I'm very biased, but it's just a cool world. You know, who would have thought?
It's a very
9
cool
years
world.
ago, Warcraft 1, that it would have rolled this way. You know, I mean, attributed to certainly game design and a lot of passion, a lot of commitment, a lot of hard work.
They were all blue too. I was looking at all the portraits they have. Sorry, my cat wants to play. All the portraits are like bluish.
But it's very rewarding to have seen
That
this
other
world,
gnome that was showing the
come
map,
off
that guy
the
was
way
like
it
mega
has.
blue. Like look at that guy. That guy's
That's really
mega
kind of part
blue.
of how it's kind of been shaped. You know, when we're talking about making massively
Clicker,
multiplayer
dude, back
game, you know,
then there
certainly
was
game
so
design
many
comes first, and
clickers.
we wanted the classes to be fun and, you know, have it be a place that
So
you would just
many.
have a blast exploring and leveling up and doing, you know, whatever you do in an RPG. But the trick to WoW is that we identified early on is that we wanted to have the quest content be kind of a staple of your experience, and to throw as much story and context at you as possible. Maybe not to the point where you're being drowned in context and, well, I don't remember who this guy is, or, you know, sometimes it can be distracting, the story content, but we wanted enough there that it really felt like you were in an authentic fantasy setting, and that the things you did mattered overall, that you'd be able to meet characters and NPCs from past games, or, you know, like notable characters from history, guys like Thrall and Jaina Proudmoore, and you know,
Rexar.
villains like Kel'Thuzad and the Lich King, things like that, so that you'd really get a sense that, you know, we were taking the process of building a world seriously, and it wasn't just churned out, and that it had a strong sense of continuity. And we've always tried to do that with our ancillary products like the D&D line and our novels. You know, we're kind of painstakingly anal about making sure that all the details add up, that the continuity is, you know, held to be sacred, you know, so that no matter in what medium you're experiencing Warcraft, it all feels like a contiguous.
Dude, him using anal right there, I said that once in my life and I never use it anymore. I think I said it to my big brother. I was like, man, why were those guys so anal? And then he was like, oh. And after that, I never used it because I didn't mean that, and I didn't know what that meaning was. But I just said it, right? Yeah.
Experience. Hope you really enjoy WoW. Hope that, you know, some of this story and history comes off, and that we've done our job well, and you feel like you're a part of it.
Very
Better
good
yet,
job.
You feel like, you know, you're at the heart of it. Will even be better. So,
Dude,
once
I need
again, thanks
one
for
more.
listening.
These guys
and
will not
have a
drop
good
this
one.
last one.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. World of Warcraft weapons.
With regards to weapons and armor, we had many of the same challenges as the rest of the art production.
I don't know why this guy talks like or sounds similar to Soda.
It was very important that we hit on a lot
Just
of
a
the
little
same
bit.
philosophies that we did with creatures or environments, architecture, which is some of the oversizing
And the last
of
Chris
of
Messin was
items
sounding
and
like
colors
Mad
and
Season.
exaggeration and things like that.
You can
Specific
hear it a
challenges I
little
think
bit,
we had
right?
with doing the items and the weapons in the game was like the progression of coolness factor from an item you get at level 1 to an item you get at level 60. We wanted to make sure to reward the player when they're
No, it's
playing,
gone
and so
now.
even at level 1, we want them to feel epic and cool. And at level 60, you know, we still want, you know, the same wow factor. It was always a challenge to make sure
this
that the
guy-
low-level
this guy made
items in the
everything?
game were still rewarding and cool looking.
Dude, this guy's fucking
we,
Giga
tried to come up
Chad.
with a visual
This is the
progression of
father.
What the what people can expect to receive in the game.
Early on, they were probably a little too
He
dry,
made all
a
of
little
this?
too toned down, and we realized not too far into production that we needed to kind of not only start beefing them up and exaggerating them,
Bro,
but
this guy's
also playing around with
insane,
some little effects
man.
and things we could do to make the weapons really feel sharp.
Can I like
but
write him a
without
letter and
utilizing a
say,
whole lot of
dude, you did a
technology.
I
fantastic
think towards the end
job?
of production, we pretty much abandoned making low-level, average-looking equipment in the game and started to front-load your play experience with just exciting weapons as much as we could.
Do you think he
and
still
challenge
works?
ourselves to come up with even more interesting, exciting.
Wait, I don't remember that accent. Wild Chat, that looks fucking badass. Yo, this doesn't exist, right? Wait, why didn't they add it? That's just awesome.
Shimmery, glowy,
It does?
enticing.
That one? I have never seen that playing Classic WoW. That one. Epic low level BOE. What? I usually know every weapon in WoW. I have not seen this. Brain hacker. What? I have never seen this. What? Brain hacker? I have not seen this.
Seeing loot or weapons and items,
Yeah.
you know, for the higher levels in the game.
I guess I'm a fake WoW
with our
player,
spell
man.
team, those guys actually came in more towards the latter end with weapons and really helped us find even that sort of next increment where really uber items could not only be beautiful and really
It's really
ornate
bad,
with
okay.
texture and
No,
environment maps,
even
but
if it's bad, like I usually
we
know
could even
every
push them
single
further
weapon.
with
That's
actually
crazy.
adding some spell attributes along with them so that you'd maybe get this flame sort of righteousness and you would kind of get these cool fiery effects coming off of it. And that was really yet another progression that really helped us at the end, just kind of pull those way over the top.
After that, everyone just got excited again about seeing glows and fireballs and dripping
Yo, she kind of cute, chat. Yo, do we like the old troll, chat?
poisons and
Wait, they're kind of cute, you know?
ice spells and things just kind of emanating out of the weapon. It's just that next level of progression to help incentivize people to keep playing the game and look for stuff in the game. In addition to the
Holy.
items and the weapons that you're questing for in the game, there's all kinds of armor, helmets and shoulder pads and chest plates and boots, all kinds of stuff. So, you know, some of the
What
same
the-
rules
that
that we
looks
had
sick.
for designing the weapons all apply to the armor, you know, and there's a wealth of Warcraft history and mythos and already established look and feel. So we basically just
Dude, they literally brought this back in BFA. This is exactly the same.
eventually just
I guess
decided
it's
just to pull
the
from what we already
inspiration of
had. We did a lot of initial
Imperial soldiers,
designing
so.
up front as well, but there was no shortage of
Yeah, these
pre-existing
are all
art and
back
design
in,
concept art to pull from.
Yeah, I know. I remember when we decided just to go ahead and pretty straightforward, just copy the old orc battle harness kind of outfit straight out of War II, and that really struck a chord with the entire team because now suddenly we had these higher poly detail characters where you're looking at them in first person, but no one had really gotten the sense that this thing was Warcraft yet. And so seeing one of these
Bro, the old orc goes hard. They look like villains. I love that.
orcs kind of pacing around with a horned fur-rimmed helmet and this battle harness and
They look
fur
like
leggings, and it really
villains.
kind of got everybody geeked up because now
Dude,
they
if
felt
orcs
like
still look like that, I would make an
they
orc.
were really down in this world, in this
looks
Warcraft universe,
badass.
and just kind of getting to experience it. And really, now I'm really actually seeing an orc up close.
These
from
ones are the
Warcraft,
normal
not
orcs.
just
That one
any
looks
orc
fucking
from that
badass.
game. That gave us sort of a hook where then we felt once we had nailed those down, we could kind of continue on and actually evolve those further and actually start to create our own style from those. It was definitely a positive mark in outfit creation.
All of our modelers and texture artists all do concepts, and so we, you know, just let them all at it and just see what people could come up with. Something as simple as just, you know, the boots in the game of, you know, just different chest pieces and a lot of stuff floating around to pull from.
Yeah, and that was where we needed to decide exactly how we were going to organize these because, you know, we knew we had the Horde Alliance thing, but we didn't know specifically just how far we should break it down.
Everything
You know,
seemed
we-
remarkable.
We have quite a few races on each side, and sometimes those share a lot of themes with each other, and sometimes they don't because, you know, you have the different...
Why does this guy sound like Grayson, chat? A little bit.
Sometimes those share a lot of themes with each other, and sometimes they don't because, you know, you have the difference in a night elf and a human, and there was a great dichotomy, whereas the night elves almost fit more visually with, say, a horde.
Little
we
bit.
needed
This
to
is Grayson's
actually,
dad, I think, man.
give them some of their own flavor, but in the long run, what the biggest distinction was Horde and Alliance, and that as long as we covered the bases for each race, really they just needed to kind of fall into those two categories.
In addition, everything's broken down into cloth, leather.
I love that
mail,
tuxedo.
and
When I
plate,
found
and
out
then
I
there's
could make
robes
that,
and
oh
stuff.
man, all my
You know,
characters have
as
tuxedos.
we got further down development, we started accumulating all these outfits and trying to keep them organized in a way that all the different artists could reference them and see where we were deficient. Oh, we need more plate mail armor. Oh, we have too much cloth armor. And so we just started to organize them in a spreadsheet and with the naming conventions and you know, with the level of progression, you can look down the spreadsheet and see, oh, okay,
so
here's
cool.
like the low level intermediate stuff, higher level stuff, you know, up to the really exciting stuff.
We didn't realize how much that was
Happy
going to,
Thanksgiving, Mr.
help us,
Definitely.
because we really had started doing it.
What the dude? I like that. We I don't think we can have that, cause can we?
For the designers mostly.
Why does he look so
as
much
they
more
would take the
badass
art that
here?
We would create. We knew that they needed a way that they could see
Holy!
an entire outfit that we had intended as a whole, whether or not you would find it as such in the game.
Right.
But what it ended up doing was actually feeding back to us as well, because now we had this very big visual right in front of our face, and we started realizing.
I feel like it looks
oh,
different.
Hey,
I don't know
maybe
why.
some of these leathers are all kind of looking the same, or that from a distance we're not really getting a lot of contrast between them. So it really helped push us to go further.
I
with the
hate this
outfits and
hat.
Really,
That
really
hat-
see that progression, and we can say, oh, okay, now maybe we mix
Freaking
these
hate
two
that
up,
hat.
or we need 3 more at the end of this string, so that we really got a full kit that a player would get in a particular area, or as a particular alliance or horde member.
In addition, we also organized all the weapons on spreadsheets as well, and it showed us the progression of the first level weapons all the way to the higher level equipment. And we had one-handed versions, two-handed versions, and there's all kinds of weapons. in
Kiko,
the
you
game.
need to
You
stop
have
going
swords
there.
and shields and hammers and
She
maces
keeps
and
stepping on my
knives and thrown
soundboard, like
weapons and,
lowering my sound and
there's
shit.
just so many different things to keep organized that we're just trying to stay on top of it all. I think organization was like one of the big things we learned on this project, is that I don't think you could be too organized with trying to keep track of it, especially if multiple people are working on it. I think in the end it paid off. I've been watching people play the game with these guild raids with dozens and dozens of people, and I never see 2 people that look exactly the same dressed up running around, so
Wow.
that's a big relief.
Dude, yes, back then it was like that. Everyone looked different. And now everyone knows the min-max. Everyone looks the fucking same now. Watch, when we get Season of Discovery, everyone and their mom's gonna look the same, bro. You guys haven't played the era or hardcore, you don't get to see the era server raid level. Everyone's gonna look the same in raid gear.
With World of Warcraft, we were really trying to look at other massively multiplayer online RPGs and try to identify what were the elements of those games that were fun. And as we went through it, we would find that...
Chet, am I just like brainwashed by WoW? Like, WoW doesn't look bad as an old game. When I look at other old game, I'm like, fuck, that looks so bad. But maybe it's just we played WoW too much and I'm used to the graphic stuff. But the old style works.
People really enjoyed
It works.
the aspects of being online with
I think it still looks good to
multitudes of
this
other
day.
players, and they loved leveling up their character and working on their equipment and working on their skills. With World of Warcraft, we put in a
Yeah, it's
great
like
questing
it's like
system. So right at the
Mario.
beginning of the game, you have objectives. You get pulled right into
Super
the world.
Mario.
You
Like, it's old, but it
have
still
quests,
works, right?
Filling up your quest
It's
logs,
kind of
so
like
you always
that,
are
I
doing
guess.
something for the characters in the environment.
Every time that you log into the game, you can accomplish something. Even though you might not achieve a new level that night
Is this Jeff Kaplan?
of gameplay, you might finish 1 or 2 quests, or you might earn
Fuck,
a
I
new rank
recognize
in a
his
trade
voice.
skill, or explore a new
I
zone.
recognize his voice.
And that was something that we really tried to hit on.
No
That way
way.
you're not so focused on the experience
No
bar the
way,
entire time
bro.
you're playing. Your only goal in the game is not necessarily leveling up, but it's completing quests.
I
and
wonder what his
visiting
reason
new
for quitting
areas,
was.
learning new
I think because
skills,
Overwatch
sort of
2 was going in a
always
bad direction,
developing
he
your
fucking just
character, and oftentimes
launched
players
off, maybe?
find that they level up and they don't even
He
realize
didn't like
that
where
they're
it was
close to
headed?
leveling.
What you'll notice when you start playing World of Warcraft is the user interface is somewhat minimal. You don't really need a manual to play the game. You know, everything about the interface is really towards keeping you in the game. We really don't like to have players go to the manual or go to the website just to figure out how to play the game.
The first time that you log in, it's very intuitive and easy to use, but as you become more advanced, you can really customize it to do
Yeah, this is
some
Jeff
pretty
Kaplan for
powerful
sure.
things. And a lot of our more experienced players will be able to sort of customize for each of their characters and really get the interface exactly how they like it.
The quest log is another example of our user interface where we always want to make sure that when you're on a quest, you know what you're supposed to do next. A lot of games in the massively multiplayer genre kind of force you to keep notes or to try to keep track yourself of where you're supposed to go or who you've talked to. We expose all that in the quest log. So once again,
No way, they did the little potion from back in the day to get here. That's so cool.
Work on their quests, and they
that
can
reminds
stay
me of like
in the entire
Zelda,
time they're playing.
where you like
Originally,
finding
when we
out the
started
secrets
designing
with
quests,
items.
we knew that we wanted it to be an integral part of the game. We wanted people in World of Warcraft to have a sense of direction and a sense of purpose right away. So we developed our quest system, which includes a quest log. The quests not only became this sense of fun, but as designers it allows us to be tour guides almost of the World of Warcraft. There's really no limit to what we can do with our quest systems. As players get to familiarize themselves with World of Warcraft more, they'll realize that quests are almost like the backbone of the game. They really direct the play experience.
World of Warcraft is a class-based game. When you first create your character, you have to choose a class archetype that kind of determines the spells and abilities and to some extent the way that you'll play the game. When we approached our classes, we wanted to make sure that our classes felt very Warcraft. We would look at the previous Warcraft games, try to determine what are some of the classic things that people want to be able to create. You know, we looked at things like the Druid, very popular unit type in Warcraft 3, so we brought that over as a class.
I don't think the old troll was that
The
bad.
Hunter, which is
not
always
the alpha
been,
one, like that
while
one.
not
They were just
itself
showing.
a true unit in Warcraft 2 or 3. We've always had this concept of the orcs and the trolls being hunters in the environment, and we brought in the Taurens in Warcraft 3, so the hunter became a class. We also had the classical classes like warriors and mages. When we started designing the spells and abilities for the classes, we really wanted to make sure that each class played as differently from another class as possible. While we looked at something like the mage was a fairly easy class to develop because we knew we wanted to have kind of all the classical sort of spells like fireballs and frost bolts and the rest. Once we start working on other spellcasters, we really had to stretch our imaginations a little more.
Holy,
to really
yo, good shit. Happy Thanksgiving. Congrats on the
we wanted to
first
give
place
him
in your
nature
group
spells,
age.
which
That's
are somewhat
awesome, bro.
obvious when you look at Warcraft 3. In Warcraft 3...
Whoa, I never saw... Chat, is this in the game? I never saw this. There was a head under the belt? I think it's removed, right? I never saw this before.
The Druid is a shapeshifter. So we brought that element into the Druid class, which really makes them play much different than Druids in a lot of other games. Our Druid can shapeshift into other animal forms. So you can shape change into a bear or a jungle cat. And when he's in these other forms, he actually gets entirely new abilities to those shapeshifted forms. And he'll almost play like an entirely different class. The warrior in a lot of other RPGs and morgs is one of the least interesting classes. The warrior traditionally doesn't really have mana or magic or anything of that nature to lend itself to more interesting gameplay dynamics, so we came up with the idea of rage. And instead of having rage work exactly like mana where it starts at 100%, we decided to have it always start at 0. A warrior would start a combat not very angry, and as he takes damage and as he delivers damage to his foe, his rage bar would fill up, and then the warrior
I like
would be able
that.
to
That
use
was a
his
great
rage
idea.
to execute his special abilities. With the rogue, we had a very similar sort of struggle trying to come up with...
Chat, was WoW? No, I don't think so. Was there any other rage classes? Or rage using... in other games or MMO back then? No, I'm not talking about like WoW. I know bear form you can use. I'm just saying like before the whole WoW system. It's inspired by fighting games. Yeah, I think so. Kind of like Street Fighter, I guess, or King of Fighter. You fill up the gauge and you get to do a mega move. EverQuest did EverQuest. I never played EverQuest, so.
Things that made him feel different. In his case, we gave him energy, which would work a lot like mana, but would very quickly be used up, but would regenerate really fast. So you'd kind of be using it constantly to do some of your special abilities. As you're attacking an opponent and you execute abilities on them, you build up combo points. And the combo points can be seen in the user interface on any particular creature. And once you have at least one combo point on the creature, you can try to execute a finishing move.
They had totem.
So that was a way to really make the rogue play very differently from the warrior.
I think a very few torrents use totems, but players cannot get totem. But in Warcraft 3, torrents had
been the
totems.
approach we've tried to take with all the classes.
I think one thing that defines players in the World of Warcraft is actually the vast spells and abilities that each of the classes gets. A player can be very basic and new to the genre and still be successful and go out, level up, and have a good time. Advanced players or more skilled players have a whole host of abilities to choose from, and I think people can really shine and show their skill off through all of the abilities, and it makes...
Whoa! Is that a dwarf mage I'm seeing? In classic, you don't have dwarf mage, right? Damn! Yo, open it up. Hashtag no change. Yo, bring that back. Bring that back.
Both PvP and PvE environments a lot more exciting.
We felt that player versus player combat was very important to bring to WoW. Each player, depending on which race they choose, is put on a side. They either will be playing for the Alliance, which is composed of the humans, the dwarves, the gnomes, and the night elves, or they can choose a race that's on the Horde, which is composed of the orcs, trolls, taurens, and the undead. By choosing your race, you are choosing a side, which determines when you do engage in PvP, who are your friends and who are your foes. We felt like having a team-based PvP system was a lot more interesting than everyone kind of being out for themselves.
One of the best parts about PvP is it gives you the chance to pit yourself against other players. They're really unpredictable and the skill levels span the whole spectrum. So PvP kind of gives everybody a chance to show what they've got.
Oh, the ghost lady wasn't even there yet.
When you're sort of done engaging in your normal activities for the night, you've been leveling up and doing quests, and you want to really like engage in the World of Warcraft. You want to defend your town, or you want to go raid another alliance's town. It gives you that feeling that the world is real and solid and that you have a purpose in it.
Who's the
One
top
of the
3 rogue
challenges
goat?
of developing a massively
My rogue goat, there's only one. I used to hate him originally because I was a big fan of Mayday and Trickery back then. They were in a guild called Hidden and rank 14 players. Mayday has a really cool video for its time. Anyways, there was a guy that made a video called World of Warcraft. I don't really know his character name. I don't know if it was Auron or Kishkumen. I think there was a few, but for its time, he was the best rogue, I think, because he fully understood how to stun lock people. And I know this might sound bizarre, but back then, people did not know how to stun lock properly into a blind stab, like resetting. Like, they didn't have that. And he wore like a level 1 outfit and blasted Mayday, and I was so mad at that, but I later understood, like, damn, this guy knows what he's doing. Compared to everyone back then, he fucking knew what he was doing. So he is the GOAT for me, at least. The other rogues, nah. They just had full gear, just one-shotting people. It looks cool, but I don't think there was any skills considered in it. I liked people that did like 1v2 or 1v3. I think that was a treat to watch. Just one-shotting. I hated, was it Pat, the warrior? That just had full buffs and like 5 pocket healers and he just I never liked those kind of shit. That's why I like lane time too. He was a warrior. He was solo run and just 1v2, 1v3. Or Vertney too, yeah. Those were the GOATs to me, not those like one-shot peoples. I don't think they're good. Anyone can do that. Have a pocket healer and blast. Grim. I never really saw Grim's video. Again, for me, the GOAT is Warcraft. That guy's the GOAT for me. Now, if we're talking about retail, yeah, Wreckful, Peekaboo. I think those guys are legendary. But for like the OG classic days, Warcraft. Drake Dog, yeah, Drake Dog was one of my favorites too. They were definitely the OGs. Anyways, back to the video.
RPG is how do
Swifty,
you get
yeah, okay. I would like to give credit to Swifty. If it wasn't for him, I would have never made my macros for Focus Kick, Focus Sphere. That was huge back then. He had a video in Wrath, I believe, where he was showing us how to like focus kick without having to target and just go drive-by kick. That shit made me juice up in ranking. It helped a lot. He was good.
To start grouping in the game.
Glenda's the same. He just has
really take part.
really
in the
good gear and blast.
Well, the tact we took for this,
it was never like
to try to
1v5
make
or
sure that
1v2.
Players could always
Unless,
solo
I don't know.
They could always advance by just playing by themselves. But really try to make sure that there's plenty areas of the game that only can be done when you group up with other players. And we did a lot of different design decisions along the way to try to embrace the philosophy of allowing solo advancement while still encouraging grouping.
There's a lot of cool quests that are more stealth oriented, and those would be
you're gonna die, man.
Tailored more towards the solo
this
player,
path is getting
so they
farmed.
can deliver items around the world, sneak around, and feel like they're accomplishing things on their own.
Another very important element is the concept of crafting or trade skills. Our approach to trade skills was twofold. We have the concept of a gathering skill, and we have the concept of a crafting skill. Gathering skills, they allow us to make the world much more dynamic.
How did they make it so fucking good? Dude, let's talk about professions. For back then, God, they made it work. Where people like talk to each other, hey, as a blacksmith, can you make me the raw for my enchanting? Like, they did a fucking good job back then. That's good.
That just spawn throughout the world, that if you have the herbalism gathering skill, that you can go around, find
dude,
these
are
herbs,
good.
and then selling them, or you could use them yourself. We also have mining in the game.
Dude, classic WoW low-key cooked hard, man. Holy shit.
Veins of ore, silver,
so
other
good.
types of minerals. And it really allows the world to feel much more interesting. It's not just this
back then
world
they
that
just
has a bunch
had
of
that
creatures
group
and
of
pretty
people
scenery.
that were
There's
super
all these
passionate about the
objects
game
throughout the world that people can
and made it
gather up
work.
and
Like
use in
they
trade
gathered the
skill system.
best.
With the crafting skills, we wanted to try to make the making of
I mean,
the
fuck, dude. Back then, Blizzard, everyone wanted to work for Blizzard. Like, it was the best gaming company back then, right? It's crazy. Yo, good night, Ep10. I'll link the video. We're watching like how WoW was created.
Really fun, not just something you go and buy the ingredients from a bunch of vendors and then make something. We wanted to make collecting the elements part of the game itself. We also try to make sure that the ingredients for the recipes to make trade skills are on creatures in the world or they're in other dangerous places. We really feel like it's a much friendlier system, and it really allows anyone to become a trade skiller and have fun with it.
We've talked about there being the mining gathering skill and the herbalism gathering skill, and those feed into blacksmithing, engineering, and alchemy respectively. Then there are also just trade skills themselves that are very different. A miner might supply ore to a blacksmith who's gonna bang that ore into shape and make swords, make shields, make armor, that sort of thing. But a miner could also supply an engineer.
Oh, the
An engineer can
dummy,
make all
man.
sorts of cool mechanical items, like a mechanical dragonling, and can make bombs and dynamite, target dummies. And then there's also some trade skills that are almost
Dude,
like
Jeff
a
Kaplan
minigame
was
in and of
cooking.
themselves, such as fishing. Fishing is just a great activity. Anytime you're near a body of water, you can throw your line out, you watch your little bobber, and as soon as you see that bobber go down
did
in the
a
water
good
and take
job.
a bite, you can pull it up
Fuck,
and,
I'm
and
sad
see
he
what you
quit
get. So fishing
after
kind of
Overwatch.
works very differently from, let's say, tailoring or leatherworking, but also falls within the trade skill system and is very fun and unique.
Another one of the core tenets about World of Warcraft when it comes to what we might refer to as our elder game or endgame is that while we really are trying to do a really interesting and deep raid game for guilds that want to take on dragons and these powerful creatures, we didn't want our elder game to only be about raid content. We also are trying to provide high-end game PvP content for players, and we also wanted to have our world have a sense of community and have some dynamic things that change throughout the world. In the raid game, a lot of these creatures, as you progress through them, will not even be available when the game...
Dude, the WoW shoulders are massive. Look at that. That shit is mad. It is not that big. I remember talking to my brother, like, WoW shoulders are always big, especially on orcs. Like, dude, this was even bigger back then. Holy shit. Dude, you know what I'm getting reminded of right now? Like, all these OG people talking, and the game was... It felt full... and a lot of concepts in it. Never mind, it's too long to talk about.
First, one example that we've talked about is the concept of Outland, which we introduced in
Oh, dude, the
Warcraft
horses
3.
are so smooth.
And
Wait, what the
Outland-
fuck? Gnome is on a tiger? I was gonna say, maybe like WoW was not supposed to continue on, but for the fans, they continued it on. Cause like Jeff Kaplan, he probably like worked with WoW for so long, and he's like, okay, I think I'm done with this. Like we put all the fundamentals. These little juniors, they can take my spot and send it home. And then he went to work on like Overwatch, right? I'm sure like most of the WoW team dev, they've been working there so long, like they want to work on other passion projects now, right? So they passed it on to like other people and went to work on different things, right? Because if you look at all the leads, they all like started doing like their own thing. Before they were like a team, right?
And is this area that actually is on another kind of planet that is beyond
Like everyone
Dark
went to
Portal,
do like
and
their
Dark
own
Portal
stuff
has
because
been
they're like,
closed
okay,
for-
I think the game is done. Like we did everything we can. The game's good, and I think they deserve to say that. Like wow, they nailed it. It was really good. So in the longevity, yeah, I mean, we all can't do something like forever, right? Even we get like bored of classic or retail and come back and whatnot. It's the same thing with Metzen, man. He like
years.
went away. He's back
Players
now.
on each of the different realms will have to find out how to open the Dark Portal again, and only once the players of each of these realms open that Dark Portal will people be able to go through it and find all the Uber creatures beyond that.
Hi, my name is Brian Farr, and I'm the lead sound designer on the World of Warcraft. Sound design is very crucial in all games. The main thing that we always try to accomplish...
I want to say, if he did every single sound effect, you fucking killed it. I'm gonna find him in Twitter and say, you killed it, man. I love WoW sound effects. They're so good. Especially cheap shot sound effect, or the backstab sound. Dude, me and my brothers used to imitate that all the time growing up.
It's an epic sound, but not too epic and not too light. And it's very hard to explain. There's a very fine line between a cinematic and a video game. We're dealing with repetition
You killed it, bro.
and things being played over and over. So we have to create sounds that all together in one blend as an epic sound. So in the world, we've added close to 80 different ambience loops. By having a large variety of ambience, we've been able to give each zone its own realistic feel.
The succubus
Creating
whip.
the ambience for Lordron, we wanted to bring back...
I mean, I'm sure they... Mimi, stop, man. Come in. Then my cats keep like going behind my computer, and they like to wrap themselves around like the wires, and that's bad.
:B.
Fall of King
Yeah, thank you for the 3 months. Appreciate it, my man.
From Warcraft 3. The goal was to achieve a haunting experience from where the return of Arthas led to the doom of the kingdom. So as you enter the gates through Lordron, you can first see this giant bell laying on the ground. So we wanted to bring in the sound of these corrupt bells ringing in the distance, very ghostly sounding. And coming through the halls, we have the crowd in here where you can hear them chanting in the distance and slowly turning into like zombies. And we wanted to scare the listener as much as possible to give that haunting feel of when he returned home. Entering the gates, you come through the doors into the chamber. You can stand in here for a while and you'll start to hear actual pieces from the cinematics in the original Warcraft 3 series. You can hear everything up to when Arthas slain his own father, and these ghosts are moving around. So with ambience, we were able to bring this back, and that's one of the many things we were able to do. Within this world, we have close to 80 different ambience loops, and that's a lot of ambience if you really think about it. We tried our best to bring ambience into every zone that looked different, and each thing, of course, is broken down between a night and day ambience. Dungeons as well, any of the major dungeons with portals into different areas, we tried our best to give them their own vibe and their own eerie feel. Or if you're in L1 Forest, we tried to bring birds into it and make it seem happy and enchanted. And if you go into a dark area, we wanted to bring as many dark things into that as we possibly can get, from owls or pitching things way down low to make them sound scary. Since this game is so massive and so many things go on at one time, we have to make sure that each creature has its own set of really cool sounds. So creating monsters is a very big challenge. We try to strive for anything that we can get from the designers.
Oh
Where do they come
shit,
from?
these things used
What
to be
is their
scary.
purpose
Those
in the
little
world?
puppies.
What do they eat? What do they breathe? Where do they sleep? Where would they be? You know, what can we do to make this creature come to life? So we start a layering process. Usually we have an actor come in, or one of us from the sound team, and we start grunting into the microphone and creating these creatures, such as like a bog beast. You know, we took elements of mud. We took scrunching of a sponge to create a wet sound underneath it, and then under that like a moaning, groaning sound. And then we layer these things together to create all the monsters that you see in WoW.
What the fuck was that? Was that an error sound?
Groaning sound. And then we layer these things together to create.
Okay,
all the
that's just a
monsters
computer
you see in
error
WoW.
sound, I think.
And we have close to over 100 different sound sets for these monsters. Each monster has 9 to 12 different sounds. So if you add that up, that's a lot of
Dude,
different
they made
sounds.
some
So
scary
we do our
noise.
best
I don't like those guys.
to try to
The
keep
banshees.
things from being repetitive. So it's a challenge to us to create these monsters, to keep them from sounding the same, since players are going to sit there and fight these creatures over and over. And I think we've really had a lot of success. I'm going to demonstrate for you the layering process of how it sounds before we process the creature. And this is the death of the dragon. It's going to start off with the actual recording of the actor, and then it's going to go into the final processing, and then all the layers together. So you'll hear 7 layers unprocessed and 7 layers processed to the final sound of the dragon death.
Sounds like a troll's death. Oh shit! Shit, it works. That's fucking nuts. Damn. They're probably all sitting like gathered. That's the one. That's the one. You write that down. That's the one, man. That's the one right there. That's the one. Write that down. Number 7.
In combat, it's broken down into weapons, spells, and unarmed attacks. We also have biting sounds for creatures such as wolves and dragons, and then each weapon has its own unique sound. Also, if you put on chainmail or plate mail, if a monster hits you with that axe or a sword, your actual sound of your impact that you get changes as well. You'll hear the chains ringing off your armor or the plate. You know, you'll hear it thud. And if you're not wearing armor at all, or leather, it's
these
more
guys are like
you know,
respawning
heavy
on
sound
top of
hitting
me. What the
flesh.
fuck is going on? I
So
literally
we
just
have
killed them.
all these different sounds combined that create this really cool feel of the game when you're playing in battle. Also, we've given bows not only just your pullback sound and the impact, but when you shoot your arrow off, you can hear the actual whiz of the sound go right past your ears. This works alongside also spells. Everything in the game that moves in combat that you use, such as a throwing axe or anything, they all have sounds while in midair, so you'll hear an axe fly right by you.
What the fuck?
Effect.
Dude, there's another
Also, based on
spawn.
the type of
Oh,
armor
dude,
you're
look at how many I killed.
hear
You
the
guys can't
armor
even see,
actually
man.
moving as you run or walk or whatever.
Okay, there's
Leather
one
has
more.
like
This
scrunchy
is
sound when you
cold
run, and then also
red.
you can hear the chains on your armor ringing as you jog along the road or whatever. It's really cool effect. I think it brings.
I
a
need to
lot
get
of
the hell
realism.
out of here, man.
Also, footsteps. We've gone so far with footsteps. I mean,
Look
if you're
how
a
many.
small
Look how many.
character in the game,
Back to back
or a
to back
small
to back to
creature,
back.
You'll hear their footsteps being lighter on grass or dirt or stone or snow. And if you're a medium to large character, such as a night elf or a tauren, you'll hear a different, weight of footsteps on the ground as well. And then this goes all the way up to like a Kodo beast or a dragon. They all have their own footsteps. It also applies to wings. If you hear a bird flapping, their wings are going to be a different weight. You'll hear, your griffin that you're riding on the back of, it's going to have giant wing flaps. And then if you're standing next to a more like a vulture type creature, it's not going to have as heavy flaps. It's going to be these light flaps. Things such as crabs, little crabs that walk on the sand, you'll hear different footsteps. Anything that is different in the game with different textures, we've tried to give it completely different footsteps as well. Also, if your character dies, you fall over, you hit the ground, it's going to make the sound of the grass. it's going to make the sound of the dirt, whatever you fall on, and that's also based on the weight of the creature, such as small, medium, or a dragon falling. And this is created, once again, another realistic feel during combat. Doodads in the game, doodads is what we call basically game objects.
Doodads.
You know, such as a fire or a door that opens.
I didn't know doodads was a word. Stuff like that and doodads. What the heck?
We've added sounds to all of these, and there's thousands of things with sounds active currently in the game. And we've tried to, anything that moves in the game, to give it some sort of sound. So when you run by it or are near it, or you pull this lever, or you use this book and this scroll, anything in the game we've added sound to. And nowadays in games, you know, you can do so much more, and we're trying to push this game over the top to being one of the best sounding games out there.
Damn.
Hi, I'm Jason Hayes, and I'm the lead composer on World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft provided some interesting challenges that are a little bit different than some of my other experiences.
Jason Hayes. Why do I feel like I know this guy?
Cinematics for the games and the trailers that promote them. You know, since StarCraft, I've done a lot of that kind of thing.
Oh, I know him. I just can't remember his face.
Is it an in-game experience, but it's a massively multiplayer role-playing game, which means that people are going to be playing for a long time, hopefully. I mean, we would hope for years. So even trying to think of how you would even begin to put music behind that kind of experience is a little bit daunting. So I think early on it was something that we decided that we didn't want to have massive bombastic music playing all the time in the background. Because the idea is that would get really tiresome fast if you had to listen to that all the time, even if it's very good music. So the concept that I came up with for it was that we would do something that would try to be a little less linear than typical music. Instead of going from point A to point B on this musical journey, like when I write a piece of music, I guess it's usually kind of like that, if I try to analyze it. Instead, trying to kind of bask in one aesthetic moment and kind of stay in that state. So if you're up on this mountain looking at this snowy vista, you just have this one kind of feeling. And if you started the music at the beginning, it would feel like you're just kind of getting the feeling of being in this moment of seeing the snowy landscape. And if you started, you know, a minute and a half into it, it would kind of sound like the same thing. It just like it's like it would always be in that one moment.
Yeah, the music we got was
a little
epic.
bit easier to fade in this music and then fade it out, hopefully, so that you wouldn't really feel like you've just now kicked in the beginning of this this composition. More like you were just kind of fading in on the feeling of being in that
moment
area,
anxiety.
a sense of, maybe a more dramatic sense of the reality of standing there.
Nomogon did farm hardcore players for sure.
Then in addition to all the atmospheric kind of stuff, we were looking for opportunities to kind of punctuate the gameplay experience with things that were a little bit more thematic and a little bit more epic, where we could get away with saying something of a little bit more substance musically. So where we elected to do that was in places like
the wild theme song,
city.
man.
Thinking of
that was hard.
In movie terms as being like an establishing shot, where all of a sudden, you know, you arrive and you kind of see the first shot, and you can get this theme that maybe represents the people that live in the city. And then beyond that, of course, in instance dungeons, and you have these really fantastic encounters that take place that are very dangerous or exciting, we wanted the opportunity to play some more action-oriented or battle-oriented music. Knowing that those particular occasions that would be warranted. Of course, you don't want to be out in the middle of a field killing snakes and have that sound massive and epic, because it's not. It's not an epic event. So we wanted to save these little action-oriented moments for like the really special encounters in the game and other special moments. You know, certain areas also in the world that have special significance because you've just happened upon maybe something famous from the Warcraft lore. We were going to have
I didn't even know there was cogwheels up there. I never looked up there.
This really cool place. I think the music in the game ended up being on a continuum from the just super atmospheric, textural stuff to things that are a little bit more melodic. And you know, I tend to get excited about the music in the game that has a little bit more of a melodic or thematic quality to it. It's also my concern that some of that stuff might get old quicker than other pieces, because they just inherently they're going to sound
I've never seen
a little
this.
more catchy. You're going to remember them better. It's just part of the nature of doing that kind of thing. But I
Where is this?
I think that kind of music is a little bit more expressive.
They have an army
At
of
the end of the day, with a project like
dragons
this, I think the
standing
main
like that?
goal is to have a situation where maybe for once people won't want to turn the music off, you know, and if in any way this thing can be so organic
I have
to the
not seen
environment
that.
where it feels like it's just an extension of the lighting effects.
Oh, it's
You
okay.
know,
Yeah,
like
I've
a-
never
like
seen
a
that before.
fog
I was like, what
effect.
the fuck?
You just really can't imagine it not being there. That's what I really hope can happen, that people get something out of there being music in the game. Because it's fairly apparent to me that after playing this game so long, you need something that can kind of blend in. And it's hard sometimes to resist the temptation to doing really big sounding music, especially at Blizzard, where people really love the large scale, massive moments. And I know for sure in the movies that they do here. That
Yo,
I've
Mad
worked a lot on
Season.
those, and
Thank you.
that's what they're a big
Did you hit
fan of. They're a
60,
big
my
fan of
man?
the giant, epic moment.
If you did,
So
big
hopefully we
rats.
have some of that in there as well. But
I'm just watching
I think
some-
over the long haul, having the general gameplay experience be a little bit more
World of Warcraft videos is
ambient
insane.
probably
I don't know if you've seen it already, but it's really good.
4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together.
I'm sure he would like it.
Stood
Mad Season makes
united
banger videos like
against
these
the
too.
might of the Burning Legion.
Thank you, man.
Though Azeroth was saved, the tenuous
Oh, he never
pact
hit.
between
Oh
the
shit.
Horde
Maybe next
and
time
the
then, yeah.
Alliance has all but evaporated. The drums of war thunder once again.
What the fuck is this? Oh, is this how they got the idea? No, I don't know. Oh no, wait, this is not a fan video? I thought this is a fan video. I think I've seen this when I was younger. Yo, this is a fire! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! I'm gonna tell my kids this as well. This is a WoW trailer. Oh shit! There's a Frost Nova, man. Oh shit! Damn. That was a fantastic video, chat. There you guys go. Wow, that was a good video. You can tell the amount of work that went into this due to the fact that the cinematics still stand up to the day. So cool seeing the storyboard original animation block out the cinematic. I still get goosebumps. What a performance this game was, ambitious. Yeah, it's insane, man. Yo, OG game devs, if you see this, you guys killed it. Best MMO out there. Period. So good, man. So good. If any of those guys see it, I want them to know, dude, they did an incredible job with the game.